as she revealed on 60 Minutes that many in the GOP mocked Donald Trump in private. We know the left mocks him, but what's lost when his mocking sycophants rarely actually stand up to him, normalizing his bizarre behavior and autocratic tendencies? Please call or text.
I'm Andrea Cabral in for Marjorie Egan. Bruna Ferrara, a Brazilian wife and mother, was detained on November 12th by ICE, dropping her son off at school. She's the former sister-in-law of White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Her son is Leavitt's nephew. And yes, there's a custody battle. Coincidence? We'll ask BU Journalism's Brian McGrory about that and why parents are concerned about shrinking children's programming like PBS Kids. It's all ahead on the 11 o'clock hour of BPR on GBH and NEPM.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. European leaders are rallying around Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in London today. That's as Russia and the Trump administration ramp up pressure on Ukraine. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports French President Emmanuel Macron has accused Russia of failing to look for peace.
Macron said Ukraine can count on Europe's unwavering support as he joins the British Prime Minister, German Chancellor, and other European leaders in London. Macron condemned Russia's continued attacks on Ukrainian cities and energy infrastructure during the peace talks. Speaking about the amended peace plan draft, President Trump suggested Zelensky could be the sticking point. Trump said the Ukrainian president didn't appear ready to sign the deal and that, quote, his people love it and I'm pretty sure Russia is fine with it. Polls show a large majority of Ukrainians are not fine with peace at any cost and don't want to give away Ukrainian cities to Russia as the Kremlin demands. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Kyiv.
The developer of an app known as IceBlock has sued the Trump administration. NPR's Bobby Allen reports the suit comes after Apple banned the IceBlock app under pressure from the White House.
IceBlock is an app that went viral for allowing users to anonymously send out alerts when Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents were conducting a raid. Joshua Aaron is the app's developer.
It would alert users within a 5-mile radius of that location, and they would get a notification on their phone, and then they could make a decision on whether or not they wanted to be in that vicinity.
Attorney General Pam Bondi said the app endangers federal agents. Bondi has said Aaron is under investigation, and she convinced Apple to remove the app from its app store. Now Aaron is suing the Trump administration for violating his First Amendment rights and making unlawful threats against him for protected speech. The Justice Department and Apple did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Bobby Allen, NPR News.
Media company Paramount has launched a hostile takeover bid for media company Warner Brothers Discovery. Just last week, online streamer Netflix announced it would try to buy Warner Brothers for $72 billion. Now, Paramount says it will beat that with a $74 billion offer. Thailand has been launching airstrikes against Cambodia today. Reporter Michael Sullivan says the strikes are along their disputed border.
Both sides are blaming the other for starting the latest clashes, with Thailand's Prime Minister Anutin Chanvirakul stating that the time for negotiation is over for now, with Thai media quoting the Army Chief of Staff saying Thailand's objective is to render the Cambodian military ineffective for a long time. Cambodia's former strongman, Hun Sen, accused Thailand of trying to provoke a reaction and urged Cambodia's forces to exercise patience.
Michael Sullivan reporting. On Wall Street, the Dow is down 230 points. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The city of Cambridge is on the fast track to becoming one of the nation's top hubs for defense and national security startups. Warfare, if you will. Some so say industry experts who are looking at a new class of startups in the city, startups that are building on autonomous drones and producing self-navigating ships for the U.S. military. The Crimson reports that all this comes as biotech companies cut jobs and life sciences funding dries up, thanks to moves made by the Trump administration. And a replica of the Mayflower will be making an appearance in the Cape Cod Canal this week. The Mayflower II was created in 1957, exists as a floating classroom and a working vessel. She will will undergo routine maintenance over the winter. The replica is expected to enter the east end of the canal later in the day around 1 p.m. It's a major day in history. On December 8, 250 years ago, the Continental Army laid siege to Quebec City in a disastrous attempt to capture it. On this day, in 1941, the U.S. declared war on Imperial Japan following the attack on Pearl Harbor. And in 1980, former Beatle John Lennon was murdered outside the Dakota apartment in New York City. In sports, Monday Night Football, well, it was Howard Cosell who called that, who said that Lennon had been murdered on Monday Night Football. But tonight, it's the Eagles and the Chargers. In the forecast, sunny mid-20s today, 23 right now in Boston and in Springfield. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Pew Charitable Trusts, telling stories behind data and trends that shape our world today through its podcast, After the Fact. Learn more at pewtrusts.org/afterthefact.
You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. I am Jim Browdy. Marjorie has the day off, sitting in his former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety, Andrea Cabral. Hi, Andrea. How are you?
Hello, Jim. How are you?
I'm very well. Nice to see you. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Marjorie's back tomorrow. We're both at the library with author Jeff Pearlman zooming in on his new book about Tupac Shakur and his mother, Afeni, plus CNN's John King and more. But right now, we're starting the show with an angle on the nation's most prominent former QAnon believer. It's outgoing Republican Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. She no longer believes, apparently, in Jewish space lasers and is now kind of sounding, I don't know, normalish. On 60 Minutes last night with Leslie Stahl, she had this to say about her fellow Republicans in Congress and Donald Trump.
Behind the scenes, do they talk differently?
Yes.
How?
Oh, it would shock people.
Well, let's shock people.
Okay. I watched many of my colleagues go from making fun of him, making fun of how he talks, making fun of me constantly for supporting him, to when he won the primary in 2024, they all started, excuse my language, Leslie, kissing his ass and decided to put on a MAGA hat for the first time. So
we're opening the lines to ask you incredulously, are you somehow finding yourself on Team Marjorie Taylor Greene? I know that gives hives to my colleague here. What do we all miss when we dismiss Trump as of limited intellect and laugh at insane things he says? Has it all caused you to tune everything out? And does it even matter what these GOP congresspeople say or think in private if the majority of his own party is still fawning over Trump in public and doing everything asked of them, legal or otherwise? The number is 877-301-8970. What do you think the impact is of so many people selling Trump short in terms of, let me be as kind as I can be, brain power, for example? Or what? No, I'm serious. There's got to be a consequence of that. Do we minimize in some ways? What's your reaction to?
Well, I mean, just the fact that anybody could even suggest that based on her having a single point of disagreement with Trump, that Marjorie Taylor Greene is normal.
Well, Epstein, she did. I mean, yeah.
But she does that because it plays to the MAGA base.
Yeah, maybe.
Which has to survive Trump, who's, at least in theory, term limited. You know, to me, this is just her trying to sort of, keep her public profile up and monetizing what she has left so she can continue to make money. Now, she signed on with him lock, stock, and barrel, right? He's the leader of the Leopards Ate My Face party, and now she's upset that leopards are eating her face. The head of the party is eating her face. I have no sympathy for her. But I
do you doubt that the other fellow Republicans mock this guy behind his back?
And they were doing it in his first term, and they're doing it now. And I'm sure that the billionaires and the others that he looks out for all do it too. I've said this many times on the show. They all know what he is. They know what his infirmities and his deficiencies are. He is a useful idiot to some. He's the face of the Trojan horse to others, and he's a messenger that some will tolerate because they like his message of grievance and hatred and all of those other things. So, I pay no attention at all to Marjorie Taylor Greene, but I think the danger is that we allow normalization of him and all of his deep deficiencies and all of his cruelty. It's people, you even hear reporters say it's baked in. That should never become baked into the American conscience. And when it does, you either turn away from it, in which case you're not paying attention to all of the things he's doing to the people of the United States of America, or you obsess about it endlessly and you stay in a constant state of rage. And neither of those two things is good because it doesn't let you fight back.
You know, when I heard her on 60 Minutes, first thing I thought of, we had Adam Gopnik from The New Yorker on Marjorie and I don't know, 6 months ago. He'd written a book review of this book by Timothy Ryback called Takeover, Hitler's Final Rise to Power. And don't get nervous, we're not going to do a Hitler thing today. But the point of the book, one of the points of the book, and one of the points that Gopnik made with us, is that a lot of powerful business people thought that Hitler was a useful idiot, that he was so stupid and his ideas so poorly formed that they could essentially control him. And there's some of that here. I mean, the classic example, I'm obsessed with this. If you, on Friday, Trump was awarded the new FIFA Peace Prize, created specifically for him, as they said on, I think it was an SNL, they called it the Soccer Peace Prize. So they're announcing the 2026 World Cup draw, and here's some of what the President of the United States said about a phony Peace Prize given to him. If there was ever a case of arrested development, it is this. Listen to Trump.
Thank you very much. This is truly one of the great honors of my life. And beyond awards, John and I were discussing this. We saved millions and millions of lives. The Congo is an example. Over 10 million people killed, and it was heading for another 10 million very quickly. And it just, the fact that we could do that, India, Pakistan, so many different wars that we're able to end.
Yeah, other than the fact that India and Pakistan said you had nothing to do with the resolution of their conflicts.
No.
A grown man who's the most powerful man in the world gets the Peace Prize as a consolation because he didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize from a soccer federation. Of course, it's a big soccer, and it's one of the greatest honors of his life. It's like a 4-year-old. I mean, it's just like a 4-year-old. In any case, the number's 877-301-8970. So far, by the way, it appears the texters are much more interesting to talk about the alleged conversion of Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they seem to be supporting your point of view. But in this case, you may be right, but in this case, she's right. She is right, it seems to me, about Trump, and she's probably right, I'm not in those caucus rooms, about what fellow Republicans are saying about him, right?
I don't doubt for a second. I think the people have always mocked him. I mean, anybody who is an adult, paying attention in the 80s, Trump has been an object of mockery for most of his life because he spent most of his life trying to get into rooms that wouldn't have him. Mm-hmm. Now he owns the room, and what we're finding is the abject lack of cowardice. The abject cowardice of people who say that they're with him but think differently behind his back. But the point is, Marjorie Taylor. For anybody to take Marjorie Taylor Greene seriously about a conversion of some kind. No, she's getting revenge on the people who made fun of her, just like she's very much like Trump, just as much as of a vulgarian. She's saying things that people who are Republicans don't say very often.
Don't you think there's value in that? Don't you think there's value that she's disclosing what Republicans who are totally sycophantic in public and praise him as the greatest leader in the history of the world, what they're actually saying in closed-door rooms? I think that's a value.
I absolutely agree, but I think you take that with a grain of salt. You take it
in terms of motive, you mean?
Yes. For
okay,
what?
Well, fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
877-301-8970. I want to get around. It's fine to comment on the alleged or non-conversion of Marjorie Taylor Greene if you choose, but this whole issue about Trump's intellect and what it causes people in positions of power, voters, etc., how it may affect their reaction to him and the things he does. John and Gardner, you're first. Welcome to the show.
Hi, John.
Good morning, kids.
Hey, John.
I think I know where Andrea stands, Jim, but I was hoping to implore you to expand your horizons and join the Marjorie Taylor Greene for President chapter out here in North Central Mass.
I'm actually, I've ordered my swag this morning, John, so you and I can be marching in that parade, I think, yeah.
Are you in the Eastern Mass chapter, Jim? Is that the deal?
I'm actually chair of the Eastern Mass chapter. What are you talking about?
Listen, I don't totally buy everything, but I'll give anybody a chance at trying to sort of make things better. I do think she has ambitions going forward of what she's going to do. God help us what those may be. But, when this crazy world of ours, if somebody like her is going to back off where she was before and sort of mea culpa the thing. Let's give him some credit, I think.
You're a better person than at least two people in this room. John, thank you.
Andrea, keep him in line.
John, thank you much for the call, as always. We appreciate it. You know, I was trying to articulate before and I couldn't get it out. Even though a lot of people criticize what Trump is doing, do you think our fight is less intense because we think he's not that smart, he's not that competent, and there's a piece of us that says that lack of competence and lack of brain power is ultimately going to cause his ideas to disappear on their own?
Pass.
Isn't there a piece of that?
I think
that's
you're right
what I was
about
trying
that.
to say.
And that's why I'm focusing on the powers that are behind him, the ones that use him as a useful idiot, because they don't go away. They never go away, and their goals and objectives stay the same. It's easy to focus on a malignant narcissist who accepts a prize from a soccer organization as though it's the greatest, like you said, maybe it was the greatest honor of his life.
One of them, yeah.
It's easy to focus on him, and they want him to be the lightning rod because he's cover for them, and they are the ones that we should be paying attention.
You've been in politics a long time, off and on. You're not now, but you talk about politics now. Have you ever encountered an elected official, no matter how low or high the level, who is as willing to accept praise, was as receptive of praise to the point of inanity as this guy is?
It's a pathetic display because he's so clearly just sort of craving it all the time. But he's a malignant narcissist. And I've said this, I'll say it again. I think he's a psychopath. And I've dealt with a lot of those over the course of my career as a prosecutor. But there has been nothing but rewarding him for it. So he expects it, he gets it. Like I said, we can focus on him, but it really is what's behind him.
The reason I'm laughing, anonymous texter says, even FIFA had to be laughing at Trump. How did they not burst out laughing at the award ceremony? If you didn't see this, I am obsessed with this. In addition to saying it was one of the greatest honors of his life, getting the soccer peace prize, he walks out on the stage after the head of FIFA, whatever his name is announces it. He walks out, he very sternly stands, faces the audience, and then nods his head. It's a spoof on a it's incredible. Okay, 877-301-8970. Go ahead.
So one of our texters says, it's an anonymous texter because they sign off as, quote unquote, the American people, says, Jim, you don't become a multi-billionaire by being stupid. That is the audience. To text something like that, that's the right audience for somebody like Trump, because it's not. That's not true. There have been lots of stupid people who've become incredibly, incredibly wealthy. But I make a distinction between stupidity and shrewdness. He is a very shrewd person. I will give him that. And if you're one of those people who's willing to do virtually anything to get what you want, you often succeed because people who have conscience and morals and who are stopped by a sense of what's right and what's decent often stand back in complete shock while you run roughshod. That's a way to become a multi-billionaire. That's worked for people in this country over and over and over again.
Chris in Gloucester, you're next on BPR with Andrew Cabral and me, Jim Browdy. Hi.
Juliet, you've got Trump nailed perfectly. I'm not impressed with Greene at all. How many death threats did David Hogg get after she chased him down the street?
That's a very good point. David Hogg, obviously the survivor of Parkland. Yep, that's a great point.
She didn't give a crap about Obamacare until her kids were affected. And she's known what Trump is all along. She's gone along for the ride. And until she makes an apology to Mike Hogg and the other people who got death threats, Mike Pence and all that stuff, then I'll be impressed. But she's getting out because she's smart enough to know the wheels are coming off the bus. But I don't give her any credit. She's not a convert. She's an opportunist.
Chris, thanks for the call.
Couldn't agree with you more, Chris, and I think she knows that base is going to want to go somewhere, and it's not going to J.D. Vance.
So am I a horrible person because I don't care about her motivation? Be honest, I won't be offended.
I think it's okay to not care about her motivation because you want the message to get out.
Exactly.
It's in much the same way as so-called evangelical Christians don't care about who Trump is as a person as long as he's anti-choice, right? You accept the messenger for who they are, but you need to put it in context.
I've often been compared to white evangelical Christian leaders, so I take that as something. 877-301-8970. What provoked this conversation was last night on 60 Minutes with Leslie Stahl, Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying that her fellow Republican congresspeople in caucus in private room make fun of Donald Trump, mock Donald Trump, and it got us thinking about his intellect, which I think is somewhat like. Here's another example, by the way. We've played this before. This is from June of this year. It's a bill signing ceremony. He's talking about how he'd prefer electrocution over being eaten by a shark in the event of an electric boat sinking. A lot of us have thought about that. Here's Trump.
I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards, or here. Do I get electrocuted if the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking? Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, nobody's ever asked me that question.
Nobody's ever even thought to answer that question.
But a malignant narcissist would say with pride, nobody's ever asked me that question. What the guy was actually saying is no one has ever been stupid enough to ask that question. And I think on some level there is a stupidity element here. But like I said, it does not foreclose the possibility of being successful, of finding ways to enrich yourself, enrich your family at the expense of other people. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive.
You know who the first person, I Googled this once, you know the first person I believe to ever in great detail refer to Trump as a narcissist and in a clinical way? David Gergen. The late, great David Gergen wrote a piece for CNN.com in 2015. There was no President Trump then. He was running for office. And he wrote, it's worth reading. He wrote this beautiful piece making the case, convinced. That was 10 years ago, and he proved to be right.
Do you remember how many times in 2015 I was on this show and I referred to him as a malignant narcissist?
I do, actually.
David Gergen wrote that.
Well, that was before David Gergen wrote? Well, maybe he heard you one day over there.
I've been screaming about this for like so long. It's been, but it's true. And that's a dangerous person. A malignant narcissist is a danger to everybody but themselves.
Maddie in Watertown, welcome to the show with Andrew Cabral and me, Jim Browdy. Hi.
Hi, Maddie.
Hi, how are you?
We're good.
Andrea, I am on Team Andrea with this, but one thing, okay, so today it came out that Don Jr. got 4 startup company contracts with the Pentagon. For $600 and something million.
Okay, there you go.
Marjorie Taylor Greene shows me the pictures from Don Jr.'s past because she's outraged at this clearly conflict of interest. All the money we spent on that laptop for Biden,
right?
I just want to throw up.
Right.
So that is when I will be even considering the Jewish space laser princess, and she resigned the day after she gets her retirement at 62.
That's right. She definitely waited until the magic hour.
Yeah, again, I'm not quarreling with anything you say. I just, for some reason, and maybe I'll be embarrassed by 2 o'clock, it doesn't matter to me if she's helping to expose the hole in that
I think
man.
Everybody already knows what she's saying.
Well, I don't know about that. I think it's, Maddie, thanks for your thoughts. We appreciate
Thank you, Maddie.
that. You really do think?
Oh, I think everybody knows that they mock him and they make fun. First of all, there are no secrets on Capitol Hill whatsoever. The press is well aware of it. They all know it. You look at the Epstein emails and you see people like Larry Summers and others, the way they talk about him behind. That's a common way that Donald Trump has been thought of and spoken about for years and years and years and years. It's just that he sold a bill of goods to a bunch of other people and he's useful to another segment. And that's what gets us where we are.
Well, maybe it was because she was in the room where it happened, I guess, to coin that phrase.
Yeah, that does make a bit of a difference.
I mean, it really had an impact on me. Again, I didn't doubt that. I mean, there's some people, like, I can't think of that senator's name, who's a former football coach in the South, who actually would lose in a contest with Donald Trump. But what's his name? I can't think of his name. The Tuberville. Is that how you
Tommy
pronounce it?
Tuberville?
He is really He's operating at a slight deficit there.
Yeah.
But I thought there was great value, frankly, despite a lot of you, including Andrea, questioning the motives of Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I do too, by the way. I do too. But I luxuriated in every single word she had to say last night, and I thought it came off as pretty convincing. Why you?
My new best friend Joanne is texting us from Hampton. Joanne says, Andrea is, as always, right. Trump is the MacGuffin. And that's a perfect word for it. Trump is the MacGuffin. It's the monsters in the under the cover of shadows that we have to focus on. That's really what it is. And you see, when he goes away and we're left with the wreckage and the damage, everybody's standing there shrugging, going, well, what happened? How did that happen? He's not here anymore. Why aren't things better? They're not better because the people who made them this bad are still there, and they were the ones that were controlling mostly everything all along. That and the people who didn't sort of stand up, and the 90 million that didn't vote is, I always say, is why we got where we are now. But I think that we're going to be left much like Germany was.
Here is an anonymous texter. I can't believe after 10 years that the awesome hosts of BPR are still following the bling of the clown show of Trump. Instead, cover the money and the damage and the danger that he's doing every day. Trump is laughing that you are all following his bait instead of covering the seriousness of his policies or lack thereof. I would say, anonymous texter, and I wish anonymous texters would sign their text or call, but you're entitled to not. That's what we do every single day. And this may be a modest departure, but I thought, and I think Andrew agreed, that there was a pretty major news moment last night, regardless of what one thinks of Marjorie Taylor Greene, that was worth talking about.
It certainly was rare. I mean, you really
rare
don't...
because again, I think I'm probably as critical as almost anybody of Donald Trump, and I came to this realization, maybe I should have understood it before, after I heard the Greene thing, is what I've said to you a couple times today, is I probably sell subliminally the pain that he's causing shorter than I should because of his limited brain power.
That's
really
where we
dangerous.
Should be focused. Yeah,
really.
That's where we should be focused.
We got to take a break.
All right, so it's time for a break. We're going to take more of your calls and texts next. I'm Andrea Cabral for Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM, and we're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
On Monday, Syrians mark 1 year since the fall of Bashar al-Assad, their country's former dictator who ruled for more than 2 decades. His ouster sparked hope for peace and liberty as Syria writes its next chapter. We revisit some Syrians we spoke to a year ago to see how their lives have changed since then. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And UMass Lowell, ranked /1 best value public university in Massachusetts by the Wall Street Journal and U.S. News and World Report. Learn more at uml.edu/rankings.
And Fixed Dental, offering permanent teeth-on implants, customized in their laboratory, enabling their doctors and technicians to oversee every aspect of the smile design. Learn more about all the treatments offered at Fixed at fixeddental.com.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. I'm Jim Browdy. Marjorie has the day off. She's back tomorrow. Sitting in is former Secretary of Public Safety of Massachusetts, Andrea Cabral. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We were inspired by the interview that Leslie Stahl did with Marjorie Taylor Greene last night, in which she said that many of her colleagues, Republican colleagues in caucus in the House, mock Trump, make fun of Trump. And we're talking about, what does it mean when one, well, as some of you have described her, as one useful idiot goes up against another. And do you share Greene's, what she says about what her colleagues believe about Donald Trump? 877-301-8970 is the number.
So let's talk to Susan from Clinton. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Susan.
Hi. Wow. I'm a long-time listener, first-time caller.
We appreciate that a lot.
Thank you.
You're in the category with Stephen Colbert, and that kind of is my saving.
Oh, my
I don't know
God.
if it's a grace or not, but thank you so much.
You're a kind soul.
Yes.
What's up, Susan?
Oh,
Thanks.
gosh. Not Trump wouldn't agree with that. Narcissist. I have now given like over 11 years of my life just attempting to open people's ears, eyes, minds of how dangerous he is. And the 60-minute interview, wow. The one thing that really struck me, I don't think we talk much about, is the fact that when Lesley Stahl asked her basically to apologize for the attacks that she's made, endless attacks on people. That's in addition to denying the school shootings and the insurrection, et cetera, et cetera. Marjorie Taylor Greene chose to throw it back at Lesley Stahl's face and accused her of making the same types of attacks. And Lesley Stahl kept her composure, which was amazing. I wouldn't have been able to do that. And she reiterated the same questioning Marjorie Taylor Greene, if she regrets those attacks on people. And again, she turned it right back to Lesley Stahl. I said, oh, my gosh, how anyone could really seriously believe that this woman is authentic is beyond me.
Susan, I want you to know your first call has made Andrea Cabral exceedingly happy.
She's
There's
right.
a huge smile on her face. Make your second call soon. Thanks for the call.
No, I'm with you, Susan. That's all I can tell you is that I'm with you. She's not changed at all. She's just angry because Trump turned on her, which is also inevitable in any relationship you have with him.
Well, I'd go one step further than you and say not only is she angry that Trump turned on her, but she saw an opportunity to create a different path with the MAGA crowd than he has created and that sort of thing. Anonymous text says, I understand where Jim's coming from, meaning my position that I really don't care what her motive is. But where I differ is that some in our society embrace any anti-Trump right-winger, even if they vote to take health care from us every time. Not everyone who hates Trump's rudeness, sociopathy, is that a word? Yeah, is an ally. It's a good point, actually.
Sociopathy, depending on where you put your
emphasis.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly. You want to take a call?
Yes, let's see what Jesse in Cambridge is thinking.
Hello,
Hi, Jesse.
What's up?
Hello.
Hello to
Andrea,
you.
Thank you for I'm fine, Jim.
Good.
I'm glad it's Monday and I can tune in again.
Good.
Andrea, thank you for enhancing my vocabulary. I'm really into words and their definitions. And so I looked up malignant narcissism during the break, and it's frightening.
Yes.
Like, there's a whole string of adjectives and descriptions that I'm going, check, 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 check. Now, it's scary that a person this deluded has this much power. If he didn't have such power, he would just be a fool, or like people would go away. But we're stuck with him.
Right.
Hey, Jesse, do you still have the dictionary open, or do you not?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right.
Do you have another one?
No. I didn't mean you should look up something else. I thought you could read some of the descriptions that you thought should have Donald Trump's little photo next to it. What's that?
I went to Wikipedia.
I see. I got it. Okay.
But I advise it. I have a short question, which is what was in it for FIFA? Presenting the toy.
I think it just buys favor. I think it's very, very well known. I certainly don't have firsthand knowledge of this, but I'm quite sure that anyone who deals with Trump is given the advice to flatter him. We've heard, leaders of other countries have spoken about how they are.
Witkoff himself told Putin, praised the wonderful work he did on Gaza. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so he's already had an inclination to sort of weigh in and say, oh, even though it's held at Gillette Stadium, which is not in Boston, well, maybe the World Cup shouldn't be in Boston because they're a sanctuary city and they're this and they're that. They know that he wades into anything that he feels he has the right to wade into for his own reasons. And the World Cup is a huge, huge event that stands to make a lot of people a lot of money and bring a lot of pleasure to a lot of sports fans. They want him off their back. So they create a fake trophy and they give it to him, and he'll say nice things about him, and he won't bother them.
Well, look at the answer, Jesse. I agree with everything Andrea said, but the first example of what they got from it, they got the President of the United States to show up for the draw of which teams are going to play where. And they got him there.
And meanwhile,
in great part because they gave him a medal in this first of its kind soccer peace prize.
Meanwhile, Haiti and Cape Verde, and among other countries that he's demonized, are in the World Cup, and they've got to go play matches, within this not within the organization, but organized by this organization, after he has travel bans on their countries and is referred to them in incredibly derogatory and insulting terms.
Hey, Jesse, thank you for your dictionary work, and thank you for your call. We're sort of
Thanks,
done
Jesse.
here. Andrea.
Okay. I mean, I could do this all day.
I'm worried you could do it all day.
We're out of time.
But we'll do it all day, actually.
Jim says we have to go, so we're going to thank you for all of your calls and your texts. But coming up after this quick break, we have the head of the Boston University Journalism Department and the former editor of the Boston Globe, Brian McGrory. He's zooming in. I'm Andrea Cabral for Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. And we're also streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, Wonder takes the stage. The best-selling novel that became a hit film is now a musical, making its world premiere at the American Repertory Theater. Playwright Sarah Rule joins us to talk about writing the show's book and shaping the story of Augie Pullman, a boy born with a facial difference, and why wonder endures with its call for empathy and understanding. Tune in for that and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the Bach Center, presenting A Prairie Home Companion Christmas, featuring Garrison Keillor and more, at the Bach Center Wang Theater December 18th at 8. Tickets at Ticketmaster.com. And Concord Park, a Volunteers of America senior community in Concord, offering wellness care and support services to help seniors age in place, including a Compass Memory Support Neighborhood. ConcordPark.org/care.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Browdy and Andrew Cabral. Marjorie's out today. She'll be back tomorrow. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Mayor joins us for an hour of Ask the Mayor on the 16th at the library. The governor joins us for an hour of Ask the Governor on the 23rd at the library. Joined on Zoom by Brian McGrory. Brian's the chair of the BU Journalism Department, former editor of the Boston Globe. Hey there, Brian. How are you?
Hi, Brian.
Hey there, Jim. How are you? Hey, Andrea. How are you?
Good.
So, Brian, we were just talking to listeners about some of the comments Marjorie Taylor Greene made last night on 60 Minutes, saying that her fellow Republicans in caucus mocked Trump, made fun of him, et cetera, et cetera. And I was positing the notion that maybe some of us who share that notion that he's of limited intellect tend to maybe not fight as hard as we should, thinking his ideas will collapse on their own because of how weak he is in that category. What was your reaction to what she said last night, and what's your reaction to what I just totally inarticulately tried to express?
So I can't believe I'm saying this, Jim, but Marjorie Taylor Greene was a lot more coherent than you were just now. Because I have no idea what you just said. But I will say that I don't think it's just people behind the scenes on Capitol Hill. I think half the people or more who work for Donald Trump now, who are in his cabinet, who are, prominent allies, they have in the past insulted his intelligence. They have ridiculed him, his taste, his interest, all of that. And all that they need to do is compliment him, commend him, and they come around and are in his inner circle. Put Marco Rubio in that place. J.D. Vance is vice president. Name them, and they've probably been there. So it's not surprising at all that Marjorie Taylor Greene would reveal this.
Okay, I'm going to take a second and final shot at this. Do some of us tend to sell him short because we think he is of limited brain power?
Yes, good. Yes, his instincts are extraordinary. Yeah. His understanding of a good part of the American public is a lot deeper than I think people give him credit for. And when you combine that with his political instincts, I think he's a formidable powerhouse.
Brian McGrory from BU School of Journalism.
You know what he does well, Jim?
What's that?
Among other things, is he picks his enemies well. And, it's one thing to know how to choose your friends. It's another thing when you're playing the division game to know how to pick your enemies and to really drive that. And I think he does that very, very effectively.
But ultimately, isn't everyone who disagrees with him his enemy? Isn't it just that he has the luck of picking so many that the majority of them are bound to be the same as the enemies of others?
I mean, that's interesting. Then that would afford him a lot of luck, Andrea, wouldn't it? I mean, he's the president of the United States. He staged a comeback that is an improbable story in American politics as you could possibly imagine. So I think he's got more than luck going for him at this point. I do think that he just has a connection with a certain kind of voter that is hard for a lot of us to come to terms with.
But that's disappearing, is it not? When with grocery prices and Epstein, it appears that at least a significant chunk of the American people who are totally enamored of him, no matter what he said, are losing interest and losing faith. No?
Yeah, probably, Jim, but we've been saying this for a while, haven't we?
Well, but the numbers reflect it. We have been saying it, and the numbers never did reflect it. But when you're in the mid-30s, it seems that is essentially as bare bottom as you can possibly get in politics, right?
Is that where he is now?
36 the other day, something like that, yeah. And even on issues like immigration and others where he scores higher, it's still only high 30s, and he's doing horribly on his calling card issue, which is the economy. So I mean, unfortunately, his term is 4 years, but I do think the American people are finally catching on.
Well, before I move on to the next thing, I'll just say I really do think it is more about us and who we have become and less about his acuity. There are things I agree with you, Brian, he's very shrewd about certain things. And like I said, when you're a malignant narcissist, you're really, really good at honing in on how to get what you want and turning people against each other in order to make that happen. But I think it's about who we as Americans are, what our priorities are, how we have regressed, what we have let go in terms of how we educate our kids, our standards. All of those things, I think, make us a good audience for someone like him. So I think it's that too. I think it's about us. Because he could go away tomorrow, and that voter that you're talking about that he resonates with would still be there.
I can't agree with you more, Andrea, and I can't believe I'm quoting Joe Biden here, but isn't it Biden who said that in the last campaign, we already know who he is, we're about to learn who we are. And I think that was the essence of exactly what you're talking about here, yes.
Talking to Brian McGory.
So, Brian, the Globe has been carrying stories, and I think the latest has the headline, Mom of Caroline Leavitt's nephew rejects White House narrative of her ICE arrest. They're talking about Bruna Ferrara, who is Caroline Leavitt's, who's the White House press secretary. Her former sister-in-law was married to her brother, Michael. Can you tell people the background on this story and what has happened to Bruna Ferrara who, by the way, was spirited away on November 12th, which was kind of a while ago. It took us a while to figure out what had happened to this woman.
By the way, I should say that story that you're citing is actually a Washington Post story, but the Globe connection is both the writers used to work for Brian McGrory at the Boston Globe, Maria Sacchetti and Todd Wallach, no?
Two excellent reporters. Maria Sacchetti was our star immigration reporter who went to the Washington Post back in better days at the Post, and Todd Wallach was our data-focused investigative reporter.
Then he went to BUR and then the Washington Post, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And they just did a terrific story on that. And I, give credit where it's due. WBUR has done some very good work on this story as well. Look, it's a complicated story, Andrea, as you know. But what's not complicated is that, yes, this relatively young mother was surrounded by ICE vehicles as she was leaving her house in Revere in mid-November and arrested and taken. Where is she now? In Louisiana or something like that? Where she just did a video interview with the two Washington Post reporters that you referenced. This looks really, really complicated. Very good reporters from the Post and BUR have dug deep into the custody battle that went on between them. But the reality is that the kid is Caroline Leavitt's nephew. Do I have that right?
Godson, which I didn't know until I wrote. Yes. And they've been lying about the mother and her alleged criminal record, as they do about so many people who they detain who have no criminal records, and they create them, and then they provide no documentation to demonstrate that what they said is true, which suggests it's probably not.
And these stories have left open, the question, the possibility that could she have been targeted because of these relationships?
I think that's what happened.
You're singing Andrea's tune.
When this first came up, it was one of my weekly segments. That was the first thing Marjorie Egan said, but why would they target her? And I said, the first place I would go, she's divorced from Caroline Leavitt's brother. Go look at the divorce records. If custody is an issue, that's where I'd start. And as it turns out, custody is an issue.
Custody was a huge issue, and threats had been made in the past, according to court records that have been brought to light by these organizations. And it really does, Andrew, you were on it early and correctly, it really does invite the question. And there should be more scrutiny on this. There obviously won't be government scrutiny on this anyway. So hopefully the news media continues to pound away at this.
Well, can I make the same point I made on the first topic where you said, are people really losing faith in this guy? I am not an optimistic person, but one of the things that gives me most optimism, it's one thing when you turn on a politician out of self-interest, and I don't have a problem with that at all. My grocery prices are going up, so I'm angry at the pal who promised to bring them down, and he did not. That's fine, and that's usually the motivator. Most people who have begun to turn, which is a significant majority of Trump on immigration, are doing it, it seems to me, out of concern for their fellow human beings. When you see a mother's face smashed into the pavement of a street in Chicago, or you read about this Leavitt situation with this totally untalented, sycophantic press person, people are getting this too, and that to me is like a sea change kind of thing based upon what he's doing to others, not to you. You buy that one or no?
I think I do buy that one to the extent I can understand it, but I don't mean anything.
No, I have to say, I've had some thinking troubles this morning. I'm going to try to do better for the rest of the show, but that's okay, Brian. Thanks.
I
really appreciate you pointing it out. Thank you.
Unfortunately, Jim, I'm not going to be on for the rest of the show. Why don't we see if we can step it up here? But I will say it's the first week of December, and I do think I heard the biggest understatement of the entire year right now when you said, I am not an optimistic person.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. Look, I agree with that. I think that the sort of tragic overreach combined with the general incompetence of the Trump administration is souring a lot of people. I don't know if it's the hard MAGA believers that it's souring as much as it's the independents that drove this election, who joined on with MAGA to get him back to the White House. I do agree with that, yes.
I just want to do 2 quick points on this story, and then we'll leave it. Her criminality that the Leavitt is pushing this narrative that she was somehow committing a crime. She had an incident when she was a juvenile, a fight over $8, I think, at a fast food place. It's a juvenile case that was ultimately dismissed. That's her record. By the same token, Michael Levitt's record is he's been found guilty of drunken driving. And
That's Carolyn's
he was
brother,
yes,
and the father here, yeah.
And he's been arrested for disorderly conduct. He and another guy were fighting in the middle of the street, stopping traffic. Ultimately, those charges against him were dropped as well, but his record is more significant than hers because hers is virtually non-existent. So it's important to understand that when you read narratives in the paper that are pushed by the White House, it takes good reporters digging deeper, like the two that you've referenced, Brian, so that people can actually get an idea of what's beyond the narrative.
Yeah, 100%, Andrew. I appreciate you raising that. There's been some excellent reporting here, and it's really important reporting because too many people are just completely willing to buy into what the White House is saying here, and then let's move on. Nothing else to see here.
Okay, I think this one I can explain well. Okay, so let's see if I can make it.
Give it a shot,
here.
Jim.
So Margaret Sullivan, who's my favorite media critic, has written about a survey that we talk about a lot on the show, Pew survey, saying that the American people are losing faith big time in the mainstream media. And I assume you buy that notion because the polling is responsible. What's the cure? What's the antidote to what we're seeing, Brian McGrory?
I mean, if I had the cure, Jim, I don't know what I'd be doing, but probably not sitting here. I don't know. I mean, I think before we get to a cure, we have to properly diagnose the problem.
What is the problem?
Look, if you listen to somebody like Margaret, who is fantastic, people just aren't buying into big institutional news organizations anymore. And I don't know that I entirely buy into that. There is we have given the general public plenty of fodder to be frustrated with legacy news organizations, from what has happened to the Washington Post with Jeff Bezos and their billionaire ownership and his kowtowing to Trump, to what has happened at the LA Times with their billionaire owner kowtowing to Donald Trump, to every major NBC, ABC, CBS doing various forms of settling lawsuits that are completely moronic in nature so that they can pay the president money. CNN having questions about its own sort of straightforwardness in how it presents news. So we've given the public plenty of fodder on this. Look, I still think that in times of crisis, people do still turn to reliable news organizations. I mean, I think I know the New York Times has never had more subscribers. The Washington Post has never had more subscribers. I can tell you my own experience at the Boston Globe. At the times of the biggest crises, the marathon bombings in 2013, the election of Donald Trump in 2016, the COVID pandemic in 2020, that is when we saw subscriber and readership surges, and I think that is still going on. So I don't want to overplay this, but I do think that the mainstream media, the conventional legacy media, has to get its act straight and not look like it is committing to one side or another.
Speaking of mainstream media and feeder sources, you talked to us, I don't know, a year ago or something about this program that you were pulling together with student journalists at BU in your department. And I read a thing this morning in the Neiman Lab about how far it's come. Can you share that with people for a couple of seconds here, Brian?
Well, I appreciate that. So just gelling with what we're just saying, look, I think people are turned off by big national news organizations right now for all the problems that we just talked about. I think in the Pew research bears this out. I'm not going to be able to quote you numbers here, but people still value local news, and people appreciate meeting a reporter. People appreciate being able to, understand the community building aspects of a local or regional news organization. So, look, in my time here at BU, we have committed ourselves to trying to help the hyper-local news landscape around Boston and New England. So many good local news organizations have folded up, have gone under, or have been reduced to so-called ghost organizations with literally zero reporters. So we have partnered with news organizations around the region and are sending student reporters out with professional editors here at BU and having them work as general assignment reporters at these places. And we have, since February, the last 10 months, we've published coming up on 400 stories in various nonprofit and independent news organizations in the area. And I think it's been a good help to these places. We've used a grant from the Barr Foundation to hire an executive director, hire an audience engagement person, and try to bring these local news organizations into a network and create the best sort of local news landscape in the country right here in Greater Boston.
Brian, I think this kinds of stuff, all of these kinds of projects, I think they're absolutely wonderful. I love Charlie Sinnott's Ground Truth Project for the same reason. They're focused in on local news and local news reporters and bringing young reporters along in the principles of, the old principles of journalism, I'll call them now, that, some of which don't exist as much anymore. But we were talking about this last week. We were talking to the founders of 404 Media. They've done a ton of reporting on the Flock Company, which does the surveillance cameras and gathers data on license plates. There are lots of projects and organizations and groups cropping up of journalists who are breaking away from legacy media, or whatever you want to call it, corporate media, and are forming smaller groups to get those investigative stories out that the larger publications are either reluctant to write about or slant a little bit, at least in the view of the people who are doing the investigation. Do you think this is the wave of the future for journalism, and that there's going to be a greater migration to these kinds of things?
Look, there's a few points to make here, Andrea. This gels with part of what Margaret Sullivan was saying and part of what Pew is showing, in that places like Substack are doing really, really well in terms of readership, and columnists at some of the bigger legacy news organizations are thriving. People are turning to them for their voices. I don't know that there's a third option when you talk about, mainstream news organizations reluctant to look at these kinds of stories. There's a third one. They're just not focused on them right now. I do think that these startups, using a lot of data-focused reporting, can continue to thrive. It doesn't mean that the Spotlight team at the Globe isn't doing its job. Spotlight has done some very, very good work over the last few years. There's room for other places to do good work as well. So I don't think it's an either-or situation.
Okay. I was just curious as to how you saw, especially coming from having been the editor of a major news publication, but also you're bringing the young ones along as head of the journalism department at BU.
There is a lot of opportunity and a lot of possibility. One kind of approach to news doesn't foreclose another kind of approach to news whatsoever.
So, since we're talking about you, which I know makes you most happy, you also were deeply involved in this creation of a brand new newspaper that won a Pulitzer Prize in about a minute and a half after its creation, with the demise of the Baltimore Sun. What rises up as the Baltimore Banner? Is there a lesson to be drawn out of that in terms of the future of journalism, Brian McGrory?
We're hoping that there is, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Look, the Banner in Baltimore is a startup, very wealthy individual in Maryland, Stuart Bainham, committed $50 million to kind of prove that you can build a news organization at scale to cover a major metropolitan region. And the Banner is thriving. It's got really strong revenue. It is not break even yet, but I think we can get to break even. It won the Pulitzer Prize for local news back in May. And I think what we're trying to show...
30 seconds.
We're trying to reset the relationship between what a news organization can be and the people that it covers, and to be more familiar, more provocative, bolder. And I think the Banner is seeing a lot of success along the way. I appreciate you bringing it up.
Congratulations. I think I did much better in the second half of our discussion. Thank you for saying so. See you, Brian.
Thank you, Jim. Thank
Pleasure.
you, Andrew.
Bye. Be well.
Bye-bye. Be well. We've been speaking with Brian McGrory, chair of the Boston University Journalism Department and former editor of the Boston Globe. We say goodbye to you listening at any PM, but make sure to tune in to the fabulous 413, which starts at 3 o'clock this afternoon. The show continues here in Boston. Coming up after the noon news on 89.7 GBH, we speak with the leaders from the Mystic and Charles River Watershed Associations on what a proposed infrastructure plan could mean for water quality in these rivers. I'm Andrea Cabral. I'm in for Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browder and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Standish Village in Dorchester's Lower Mills, providing assisted living residents with programs designed to help seniors stay sharp, social, and independent. Learn more at standishvillage.com/programs. Amid Trump's immigration crackdown, Frontline tells the story of one Venezuelan family in Florida trying to stay together and keep their legal status. Watch Status, Venezuelan, tomorrow at 10 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browder, head on Hour 2 of BPR. We'll start with a check-in on our local rivers and waterways. If a new state proposal takes hold, it would allow sewage, including human waste, to be dumped into the Charles and Mystic rivers indefinitely, backsliding on decades of progress to end the practice. We'll talk to Emily Norton and Patrick Herron from the Charles and Mystic River Watershed Associations.
I'm Andrea Cabral, in for Marjorie Egan. Then it's James Beard award-winning cookbook author Dorie Greenspan on her latest Anytime Cakes and her tips for making holiday baking less stressful. Then we'll check in with GBH reporter Sarah Betancourt and Project Citizenship's Gail Breslow on ICE's latest cruelty, targeting immigrants on the cusp of citizenship at their swearing-in ceremony at Faneuil Hall. That's all next on the second hour of BPR on 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A White House official confirms that the Trump administration is announcing $12 billion in one-time payments to farmers in response to a decrease in export demand in the wake of this year's tariff hikes. The payments will be announced during a roundtable event hosted by President Trump at the White House, featuring affected farmers, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins. The move comes as the administration looks to placate economic concerns from key Trump constituencies as the tariff effects play out. Netflix and Paramount are in a bidding war for Warner Brothers Discovery. Today, Paramount, a Skydance corporation headed up by the Ellison family, put in an all-cash tender offer for $30 a share. NPR's David Folkenflik reports on the factors that have led Paramount to offer shareholders $18 billion more in cash than Netflix.
Paramount's looking at the landscape and saying we're too small. We can't compete. Netflix is the world's largest streamer. It's the nation's largest streamer. There's also Amazon, which, it bought MGM, which is a small little studio, but it's, Amazon has all the money in the world, the everything store. It's looking at Apple, and it's looking at Disney, which several years ago bulked up by acquiring most of the Murdoch's Fox entertainment properties out there in Hollywood. Paramount says, look, if we combine together, we're two of the old-time studios, Paramount and Warner Brothers. We can do this. We have all these, cable properties. You have cable properties. Let's be in business together. Let's take on these giants.
NPR's David Folkenflik reporting. With a hostile takeover bid looming, it's one battle after another that's given Warner Brothers a reason to celebrate. Paul Anderson's film has scored a leading 9 nominations to the 83rd Golden Globe Awards, including for its cast Leonardo DiCaprio, Deanna Taylor, Sean Penn, and Chase Infinity. Days after members of Congress saw a video of a U.S. military strike on a boat that some are calling a war crime, a Democratic lawmaker alleges Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth does not want that video published. NPR's Luke Garrett reports.
House Armed Services Committee ranking member Adam Smith got to watch the video of the strike on survivors of an attack on an alleged drug boat in the Caribbean. Smith, a Democrat from Washington state, called the tape, quote, deeply disturbing on ABC News.
It seems pretty clear they don't want to release this video because they don't want people to see it.
But Republican Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri told ABC News that the early September follow-on strike and those that followed or all legal.
They're going to carry out their mission. They executed another strike of a narco-terrorist just this past week. Those will continue, and they're completely authorized. I reviewed the 40-plus page memo by the Office of Legal Counsel.
Hegseth said the Pentagon is reviewing the strike footage to determine if it can be released. Luke Garrett, NPR News, Washington.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is now down 239 points, or 0.5%, at 47,716. From Washington, it's NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A quick look at the calendar tells us that Christmas is 17 days from today as shoppers sprint to the finish line to get those gifts under the tree. But recent tariffs and the high cost of goods have some shoppers not spending like they have in the past. John Hurst is head of the Retailers Association of Massachusetts. He tells GBH's Morning Edition while all retail outlets are hoping for a strong finish to the year, it's the mom and pop stores that could really use our help.
We as consumers have to understand that it is a mission for all of us to help out these small businesses and help get them over the finish line before the holiday.
Hurst says the Mass Retailers Association has upwards of 4,000 members. And a former Drug Enforcement Agency official with ties to Rhode Island Senator Jack Reed has been indicted by the U.S. Department of Justice. On Friday, Paul Campo and former CIA operative Robert Sensi were charged with narco-terrorism, narcotics distribution, and money laundering charges. The two were arrested in New York. The indictment alleges that Campo and Sensi conspired to assist CJNG, one of the most notorious Mexican cartels responsible for countless deaths through violence and drug trafficking in the United States and Mexico. Go Local reports that what wasn't mentioned in the indictment is that Campo grew up in North Providence, Rhode Island, and has ties to U.S. Senator Jack Reed. The senator's office disputes the depth of the Campo relationship and Reed. In sports, Monday Night Football, the Eagles at the Chargers. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Made in Cookware. Made in Cookware is crafted by chefs for use in restaurants and home kitchens around the world. Their cookware can be found at madeincookware.com. This is NPR.
Welcome back to hour number 2. Well, you're not welcome back to hour number 2. Welcome to hour number 2. I'm Jim Browdy. Marjorie has the day off. She'll be in tomorrow. Former Secretary of Public Safety, Andrea Cabral, sitting in. Hello again, Andrea.
Hello again, Jim.
Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow at the library, Jeff Pearlman will be zooming in. He's written a new, I think, terrific book on Tupac Shakur and his mother, who I knew pretty well, Faneuil Shakur, plus CNN's John King and more. On the 16th of the month, the mayor joins us, Mayor Wu, for an hour at the library. 23rd, the governor joins us for an hour. It's taken decades, but the days of the Charles River as a smelly, toxic dumping ground are not quite gone, but they are dramatically improving. From time to time, you can read stories about it being swimmable. It's due in part to the tireless efforts to clean our waterways and stemming the flows of runoff and sewage into local rivers like the Charles or the Mystic in Medford. Recently, the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, which oversees water and sewer services in part of the state, is considering a proposal that would change the water classification. We'll explain this of the Charles, specifically allowing disgusting, unhealthy sewage releases to continue at least some of us think, at an inappropriate level in the river. Talk about what's at stake. We're joined on Studio 3 by Emily Norton. Emily's the executive director of the Charles River Watershed Association, and Patrick Herron, the executive director of the Mystic River Watershed Association. We have invited leaders of the MRWA to join us, and when we hear back from them, we'll share that with you. Emily, Patrick, it's great to have you both. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So, can we start with the current state of affairs?
We're going to fight over who does it first.
Tell us what the current state of wastewater and sewage dumping in our rivers. Let's start with you, Emily. Where are we today as we sit here?
Today, we are much better off than we were. Those of us who live in the area and have been here a long time remember when the harbor was disgusting and it reeked. The Charles was disgusting. I grew up in Newton. I remember those days. And so we want to applaud the progress that we have made. The issue here is that the work is not done. And so we're saying, why would we quit before we have finished? The Clean Water Act in 1972 promised fishable, swimmable rivers. By 1983, folks know we do not routinely swim in the Charles. It is not safe enough for that. So what we're saying is, let's finish the job. Let's not declare mission accomplished before we have actually cleaned up the Charles and eliminated these sewage discharges, which happen every time we have a large, and sometimes not even that large, a rainstorm.
What's a CSO?
Combined sewer overflow.
What does that mean in English?
In English, that means it's areas where, and this is basically about infrastructure, where we still have a combined stormwater pipe, and all that means is where the rain goes in so we don't flood our roads every time it rains. If you think of your storm drain, that drain leads to a pipe that leads to a water body, in this case the Charles. But unfortunately, in several areas along Cambridge and Boston, the stormwater pipes are combined with your sewage pipe. So when you flush the toilet, when you wash your clothes, that wastewater goes into the same pipe. And when it's dry weather, meaning it's not raining, no problem. Everything goes to Deer Island. The problem is during a rainstorm, you overwhelm the capacity of the pipe. And if we did not let it discharge into the Charles, you'd have sewage backups into people's homes, the streets, people's businesses, which is obviously unacceptable.
So, Patrick, there are some very specific sites that routinely get this wastewater during, and we've been having a lot more severe storms than, because of climate change, than we have in the past. There are very specific sites that get this. Explain to people where those sites are and what that actually means for the people who rely on clean water in those areas.
Yeah, well, that's a great point, that these are very conceptual ideas until you're actually on site and see them happening, and this is in your community. So I'll describe them in the Mystic, and I'll let Emily describe where they are in the Charles. But in the Mystic, in particular, we have combined sewer overflow discharges happening at Alewife Brook, which is between the communities of Cambridge and Somerville and Arlington. And these are untreated, raw sewage, so there's no treatment. And these happen at a scale of 10 to 20 million gallons a year. At least.
Wait, 10 to 20 million gallons a year?
Yes. So
and that's an improvement over, to use Emily's words, as compared to where we used to be?
That's right.
Yikes.
For scale, if you have a backyard swimming pool, that's probably between 15 and 30,000 gallons. So it's a signal of what we're going to see in the future. As we see greater rainfall and intensity, we're going to see higher amounts of discharges. And it is overflowing the banks in this community, going into the paths that people are trying to get to work on or to recreate on. So we've got documentation of people pushing their strollers through this sewage.
What are the problem spots of the Charles?
In the Charles, we have 9 locations along the main stem in Cambridge and Boston, Harvard University, Back Bay, Beacon Hill. There's one in the Muddy River that is not under this long-term control plan, so that's a whole other issue we need to be dealing with. And what this means is when there is an overflow, we warn people. We have a flagging program. Blue flag means safe, red flag means not safe, and we warn people to stay off the river, even in a boat, for 48 hours, because it's probably not going to shock you to hear that contact with poopy water is not good for our health. And in fact, Boston University did a study near the Merrimack last year and found that hospital visits from gastrointestinal illnesses went up significantly, 62%, after major CSO events. We have no reason to believe that that's not the case in the Charles and in the Mystic and the other areas around the state where we still have these issues.
So making those connections between what's in our water and gastrointestinal illnesses and the spread of those illnesses, that's a challenge. And I want to applaud both of you, because the MWRA was going to vote on this plan to actually reduce the standards, right? Reclassify, I think we go from a Class A to a Class B on the CSOs. And you in connection with others, managed to get the public interested and engaged enough. They've tabled the vote. So I'll start with you, Emily, and certainly jump in, Patrick. Tell us how that happened, how they tabled this vote.
Yeah, and I'll just give a little background. We ask people to tell us their Charles River story. Why do you donate to our organization? Why do you volunteer with our organization? What do you love about the Charles? And it won't surprise any of your listeners. Even those who do not boat on it or interact directly with it love this river. People get engaged next to the river. They grieve lost loved ones next to the river. They paint nature scenes next to the river. There's an absolute love and revering of this river. And so for us, when we heard, and we were surprised, we were not given advance notice, that the MWA staff were proposing to the board Class B, what it is now, to what's called BCSO.
I'm sorry. It's a
no worries.
Right.
The stuff gets really technical. We were shocked, and we thought that the public would be shocked as well.
That would allow them to dump more crap in the river. I mean,
that would allow. We would have virtually no legal leverage going forward anymore in the way that we do now. The Clean Water Act does not allow dumping of sewage.
It's
the
absolute.
only reason
That's right.
they're able to do it is because they get what's called a variance from the water quality standards. Right. But during a variance, it's not a get out of jail free card that you can dump poop forever.
Very
it is you have to be showing that you are making progress toward elimination.
Right.
So what the staff were proposing was something that I believe is very much against what the public wants. It's against the Clean Water Act. It's against what we've been promised. People have been paying all these years higher rates, and that has gotten, in the Charles, in 1988, 1.7 billion gallons of sewage were dumped. So the fact that it's tens of millions or sometimes hundreds of millions now is definitely progress, but not finishing the job.
Is there an alternative, I assume, that people like you have proposed that could cause them not to reduce or cheapen the classification of the Charles that would solve this problem over the long term?
Yeah, well, credit to Mass DEP, who saw where this was headed, and they actually issued a letter after we raised concerns and others raised concern that basically said, we have concern that the plan that you're proposing will be in violation of the Massachusetts Clean Water Act going forward. And the reason for that is that if you look at precipitation and the amount of CSO volumes, it's possible that at a number of these sites we would actually see an increase in CSO volumes despite their investments. So the scale of the work that they were proposing wasn't going to make the progress to stay in compliance.
So is the only reason they're doing this is because of the bottom line? I mean, my understanding from reading a story is, while they've spent almost $1 billion so far, $900 million, the MRWA, their proposal would cost a third of $1 billion. Yours would cost $2.5 billion. Is it all about the bottom line that separates you? Emily, you're nodding in agreement.
Yes, they think that people do not want to spend the money. And I will just remind...
Why do you think they do?
I think because,
it's a lot of money.
Having been to some of their board meetings, these are not easy to get to. The public do not go to them. And I think they're not hearing from the public the way we are. What we're saying is, let's have a public conversation. And yes, $2 billion sounds like a lot of money. How many people know that just 15 years ago, the MRWA spent over $200 million, which in today's dollars would have been $309 million, on one CSO in Dorchester, and that has now made Carson, that beach, safe for swimming. Where was the rending of garments over making that beach swimmable? The big, expensive projects are what the MWA do. So it sounds like a lot. And they can borrow
the money, obviously.
They borrow the money over 30 years, over 2 million people. Like this, let's have a conversation about what the actual rate impacts would be. And keep in mind, large institutions pay a lot more than your individual homeowner. We have not heard what those rate impacts will be.
Well, Patrick, beyond the money, I mean, and it's no small thing to say beyond the money, because the money always is the driver. I don't understand the persistent resistance to long-term resiliency planning. When we were doing Ascend, the cannabis company in Newton, they had requirements. We were redoing the parking lot. We had to build a drainage system that would withstand the 1,000-year storm or the 100-year storm, because Newton's local ordinances required it. This is the state. Why kick the can down the road again? And I know it's the money, but the disaster that ensues when you don't have long-term resilience planning.
You've been to the seaport lately, by the way?
Yeah, no, it's true. But I'm just wondering, from your perspective in this every single day, how do you get at them to get them to stop resisting this?
That's a good question. I think what we do is we direct the agency and everybody involved in this process to look back at the statements from Governor Healy and others who are calling out the importance of climate resiliency and planning for the future. And even in some of their plans, they call for the elimination of CSOs. So we do see a disconnect. I think there's something about the present here and now, and people have a hard time looking into the future and saying, oh, we should pay for something that will give us relief 20 years from now.
Now, can I be crasser than you?
Yeah.
I said this to Andrea during the break. I've always believed that most pols, with all due respect to some former pols sitting in the room, Emily, most pols make a calculation when there's a big expense. Is the bridge going to fall down while I'm still serving? And if it's going to fall down after I leave office, leave it to the next generation of elected officials. If it's going to fall down on my watch, I'll do it now. And as crass as that is, I think that's how lots of these calculations are made. There's some exceptions to that rule. So when the MWRA shows up, which we hope they will, and as I said, we invited them. We didn't do it till just this morning, so I don't want to be critical. We just invited them this morning. We should have done it earlier. They're not going to admit it's all purely about dollars. Are they, or are they?
Yes, they're going to argue that the amount of improvement we would get would not be worth the money. And they're going to argue that it's actually stormwater, not sewage. It gets very wonky. Stormwater pollution is an issue. Stormwater does not bring the pathogens, the viruses that you have in human waste.
It's human waste, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, but my point is that it is happening now. Jim's saying if the bridge is going to fall after I go over it and it's next to... It is happening right now.
Did you know they were dumping hundreds of millions of gallons of this crap in there?
And that is essentially my point, right? It's not if that's your reasoning, let me have the next group deal with it. It is now.
Right, and we actually think, given the permitting schedule that's out there and the variances they get to be to allow them to do this while they do this work, should require them to actually present a plan in detail that will yield the elimination of CSOs. Tell us how they can achieve that. And if they need more time to do it, tell us that. If the money is the problem, tell us what are the solutions, how they can overcome that. Take that in front of the public and the politicians and say, here's how we solve this problem. Instead, right now, those decisions are being made inside the MWRA.
Is Governor Healy, I understand her general position. Has she weighed in specifically on what the MWRA is about to vote upon?
Her Secretary of Energy and Environment, Rebecca Tepper, chairs the MWRA board, and my sense is from the meetings that we've been at, she played a leadership role in putting off this vote.
We'll bring it up with her on the 23rd. So, and the next meeting is the 10th. Is this Wednesday? If people want to weigh in, how does a normal person weigh in with the MWRA if they don't have the time to show up at a meeting?
So we have on our website something we very subtly called Cut the Crap. The name of this campaign.
I think that was brilliant.
Yeah, so the website is cutthecrapcharles.org, and we've made it very easy for people to weigh in that way. And I do
cutthecrapcharles.org.
And we have had close to 9,000 messages sent, and I believe that was really impactful. So to your point about what drives politicians, angry people are a very powerful force. And if people are not happy about this and they want to see the river finally cleaned up, and I'll just remind people, Chicago now has swimming in their river. Portland, Oregon has had swimming in their urban river, the Willamette, since 2018. This is doable, but we have to decide as a community that we want to make the investments.
Have either of you ever swum in the Charles?
No.
Was Well drunk when he jumped into dove into the Charles? Do you know?
I don't think he was drunk, but I did read that he had an ear infection for weeks later.
Jeez.
Yeah.
There's a great, if you Google it, I'm sorry, Patrick, you're going to say something.
No, that's all good. Keep going.
I have a feeling Patrick knew the answer to that question, but decided discretion was the better part of something. Is that true?
It's true. I mean, I guess what I want to say is it's not only cutthecrapcharles.org, but it's also come to themysticriver.org and sign up for our newsletter and stay informed. Because I think the goal for all of us is to inform the public, allow them to weigh in on how valuable these rivers are. These are iconic rivers. And it is shameful for all of us that we are dumping raw sewage into the river still in 2025. Yes, it's expensive, but also we have amazing expertise at the MWRA, Cambridge, and Somerville, and really a lot of great values at the state government who say this is really important to them. So let's get this done. Let's eliminate CSOs and make a plan for it.
Emily.
Yeah, so for anyone also listening beyond the greater Boston area, because I know from being a regular listener that you have callers from everywhere, I would say, and granted this is very self-serving, but I do believe so goes the Charles and the Mystic, so go the rest of our rivers. If we can't prevent poop from being discharged forever into the Charles. Well, what hope is there for the less less well-known rivers across the state? So we need to make a stand that we actually care about our rivers.
We got to go one more time. Websites quickly.
Cutthecrapcharles.org.
And you?
MysticRiver.org.
I just want to say, once a regulation is decreased or diminished, it is nearly impossible to get it back to where it was in the beginning.
Great
Thank
point.
you.
Good to see you both. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Patrick Herron, the Executive Director of the Mystic River Watershed Association, and Emily Norton, the Executive Director of the Charles River Watershed Association. Coming up after the quick break, multiple James Beard Award-winning baker and cookbook author Dorie Greenspan joins us in Studio 3. I'm Andrea Cabral. I'm in for Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's great to see.
Scientists have discovered millions of new species on Earth since the 1700s, and we are averaging 17,000 more every year. But how many more are there?
The range of estimates of how many species are out there are from the low millions to the low trillions.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly. The mission to better understand life on our own planet, on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Silograms, a Massachusetts-based maker of custom silicone products, from monogrammed ice cube trays to personalized wine stoppers and pet products. Their line of holiday gift options is available online at silograms.com. And M. Steinert & Sons, New England's Steinway dealer since 1860, dedicated to meeting the musical needs of pianists of all skill levels. The Steinway & Sons holiday event is happening now through December 31st. msteinert.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Andrea Cabral sitting in for Marjorie. Marjorie's back tomorrow. I'm Jim Browdy. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. It's officially peak holiday season. That means sweets and cakes galore. But our next guest argues that any time of the year is cake season. Dory Greenspan is a multiple James Beard Award-winning baker and cookbook author, known for her books Baking with Julia, Baking from My Home to Yours, and Dory's Cookies. Former columnist for the New York Times Magazine and the Washington Post, now writes her own fabulous Substack, Dorie Greenspan, Dorie, greenspan.substack.com. And by the way, I should add, and is responsible for both me and Jamie's favorite dish in the world that has nothing to do with bacon. Your Mediterranean shepherd's pie has changed both of our lives forever. We'll get to that in a minute. She possesses great skill when it comes to baking, decorating, presenting feats of culinary prowess. Her latest book is an homage to the simple, the humble cake. It's called Dory's Anytime Cakes. It's available wherever you get your book. She's in town tonight for a sold-out event at BUR with the other greatest baker alive, Joanne Chang. Dory, it's great to have you here. Welcome.
What an introduction.
It was a hell of an introduction, wasn't it?
A hell of an introduction. And I love Joanne Chang.
Oh, so do we.
I mean,
the best.
The best. And so I'm really happy.
You're not bad either.
See you.
I mean, so it's right in that kind of league thing. It's great to have you, Dory.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to say.
Okay, listen.
Well,
okay.
If you want to do the first, if you want to do, I'm going to.
No, I want you because you're so excited.
I am. I'm very, very excited. I want to talk to all the people out there who are like me, who really like watching other people bake, want to be bakers ourselves, but are intimidated. Like, I watch all the baking shows. I love Great British Baking Show. Great Canadian Baking Show is really very good too. And I watch them, and I love what they do, and I love how creative they are. I like the science of baking and the art of baking. But I feel intimidated to do it myself. And Jamie gives me your cookbook, and suddenly I feel like a friend is helping me bake.
Oh. Oh,
yes.
There is
And I'm so excited that but it's the way it's written. So tell people how you came to write this cookbook, and then we'll talk more about all of the things that are in it that make people feel so at home.
Okay, but first, can we just, my heart is going pitter-patter. Thank you. Thank you. There's nothing better. There's nothing better you could have said to me. I think of myself sometimes as an evangelist for home baking. I want everybody in the kitchen baking because it's so wonderful, because the actual doing is great and the sharing is even better. And it's not hard. So,
it can be really hard. That's the beauty of this cookbook, Dory Greenspan. It can be really hard.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, I haven't practiced vintage frosting or piping and flour, but I think that the cakes that I love and the cookies they're simple. I actually think that baking is easier than cooking, because with baking, you get a solid recipe, you follow it, you've got cake. With cooking, you're constantly making judgment calls. More salt, more pepper. Oh, does this need hot sauce? Right? Baking is easy, and it's so satisfying.
But you've simplified it even more here. By the way, are there even? This is a machine-free cookbook.
No. It's not machine-free, but there are lots and lots of recipes for which you need a bowl and a whisk.
Don't you find that? I'm not a real baker, even though we'll get to that in a minute. The satisfaction of doing things by hand, though, with a whisk, is really.
Yes, there's great satisfaction. It's also, I find it kind of mesmerizing.
Yeah.
You put the ingredients in the bowl, you stir them slowly, they change, chocolate swirls.
That's so true.
Yeah, it's really pretty wonderful.
So one of the things that I think made me feel like made this book so accessible to me, because I've got Julia Child's book. If people come into my kitchen and they go, "Are you a gourmet cook?" Because I have all the accoutrement of being a gourmet cook and baker, and I don't use any of them. The Martha Stewart one. It's that you talk about the things that happened in your life that make a connection to your baking, or meals that you remember, nostalgia. All of those things make people want to cook because they have those same memories.
So, and thank you. I feel like, don't laugh, but food tastes better when there's a story.
Yes.
Yeah.
When there's something that you're holding on to that makes you think of your own stories. And this book actually surprised me. I didn't expect it. I guess every book is a surprise as you work, things change. But with this book, I would be making something, and it brought up memories, things that I had forgotten. I made a cake that I thought was going to be a shortcake, and my husband said, "Doesn't this remind you of the Charlotte?" We grew up blocks from one another. "Doesn't this remind you of the Charlotte Russe that we used to buy at the snack stand in Brooklyn?" That snack stand's been gone decades. And yes, it did. And that there's something. Sure, it happens with food, but I think it happens with sweets, because sweets are such a treat that they're always often tied to somebody sharing something with us or some happy memory.
Speaking of memory, you are different in one major respect. I think this is a true statement. It's close to true, at least. Every great cookbook writer or chef or baker who we've ever had in here talks about the influence of their mother's cooking on them. How did your mother's baking affect you, Dory Greenspan?
My mother was an ace bakery shopper. When she moved to Florida, she called me and she said, "Guess what? I have 2 ovens." And I said, "What are you going to do with them?" And she said, "Storage." No, I had... My grandmother baked. Sadly, she died before I was interested in baking, but I remember her bringing honey cake and cookies and apple cake. But my mother neither cooked nor baked. She didn't... Everything that you have in your kitchen, Andrea, she didn't care about it. The kitchen was lovely, but I don't think she ever bought a new pan. But she loved good food. She had a sweet tooth, and there was always cake in the house. There was there were 3 bakeries near where we lived. She shopped at all of them, and there was just cake on the counter.
What did it do for you? The proximity of a cake when you walk in your house.
So it was welcoming. It was an invitation. It was, and there were always people in our house. There were always people in the kitchen. So I'd come in, there'd be a neighbor. My mother and the neighbor would be having coffee, and they'd be having cake. And it would be, and this is really kind of what started the book. These thoughts of what kept the book going, really, these thoughts of what it was like to have cake in the house, what it was like to have something to welcome people with.
Dory's book, by the way, is Dorie Greenspan. Dory's Anytime Cakes is the name of this great and simple, and I mean that in the best sense of the word, cookbook.
I remember so clearly. My mother could whip up a gingerbread. First of all, my mother learned from her mother. Never measured a thing. She just knew, right? Because that's how she learned it. Whip up a gingerbread, and it would seem to be seconds flat, but I remember her gingerbread, her pistachio pudding cake with chocolate chips, lemon meringue pie for my father, and she did bread. She baked all her own bread, baked all her own pies, all that stuff from scratch. When you say the cake on the counter, that's what I thought of. I thought that meant that was for everybody. That was her, for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when you, essentially, am I wrong? But it seems like with this book, you want us to open ourselves up to cake on the counter and bring other people into our lives as well.
Yes. So cakes are for sharing, right? They're big. So I'm just going to back up quickly. I was asked by the New York Times to do a story about holiday cakes and to come up with 3 recipes. And I said, I can't do it. I don't do fancy cakes. And I think holiday equals fancy. And then just as I was about to hang up, I said, but what if I made a cake that you would keep in the kitchen, that you could eat while you were making the fancy cakes? And that was how this started. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought about, cakes for everyone.
So we're about to have a taste test, and you and Andrea are going to be the judges. I'll tell you what the contest is in a second. But, Andrea mentioned Julia Child before, and Marjorie and I have done many shows on the alleged 5-second rule, and you had a Julia Child experience with the 5-second. What was Julia Child's position on what happens when you drop something on the floor?
Well, no, I did not have an experience, but I had a lot of experiences with Julia because I'm a lucky person. She would pick it up.
Yeah, she said if nobody's watching, you just pick it up and do it, right?
Up. Yeah.
I'm with that.
Do you pick it up, don't you?
A piece of bologna is a difficult problem.
Beyond
sticky. Bologna, you pick it up.
That's because bologna's pretty much already on the floor.
Okay, so here's the deal, you two. We're not going to, by the way, Jamie, who's our lead producer, as you know, doesn't just adore you professionally. I didn't know till yesterday about your longtime relationship from when you met him at BUR. He's totally in love with you. So Jamie...
I'm coming back here every day,
no,
invited or not.
You should.
So Jamie made a cake from your cookbook. I made a cake from your cookbook. We're not going to tell you which is which. One of them is the olive oil and orange grab-and-go cake.
Okay, I can tell which one that is.
Well, I know you can tell which one it is, but you're not telling you who made it. One of us made the cocoa-swirled pumpkin bundt cake.
Okay.
You're going to taste both Andrea and Dory Greenspan. And we have, by the way, both of us are pretty strong people. You're going to tell us who did a better job from the Dorie Greenspan, Dory's Anytime Cake, and then we will disclose who baked each.
Oh, dear.
Before I taste this, I just want to tell people the depth and breadth of recipes and variety of cakes in this book, you will find cakes that you want to bake in this book. You totally will. It's amazing.
Okay, so taste. We'll have Andrea give her response first.
Okay, may I just say,
you may say whatever you'd like.
Yeah, I can barely decide what color socks to wear in the morning. And
be brave, be brave,
be
brave, because both of us are fairly strong people. She just popped one in her mouth there. Oh, she said, okay.
It's funny because, I've worked on the book for years, and then it takes over a year until it's produced. There are cakes I haven't tasted in a long time.
Well, you're tasting them right now, my friend. Did you taste them both, Andrea Cabral? Okay.
Oh, you're a faster taster than I am.
Okay, one is the olive oil thing. One is the cocoa swirled pumpkin.
The thing.
What is your reaction to the two cakes, please, Andrea Cabral?
I love Jamie Bologna like you as my brother.
Don't say which is which.
Well,
But
I think she just did.
The olive oil cake I love.
Okay, what's your verdict? That's a very sound
I
decision.
like them both very,
Yes.
very, very much, but the olive oil cake has a moistness to it that I really
Thank
am
you.
enjoying.
I mean, whoops, I'm not supposed to say thank you. Okay, what do you think, Dorie Greenspan?
I think everybody knows.
Dorie is very nervous here because she
Yeah.
doesn't want to offend either of us. Offend away. Go ahead.
No, I don't want to offend. Also, how can I offend? They're my recipes.
Exactly. Excellent point. Okay, what'd you think of the two of them?
Well, maybe I'm just in a holiday mood, but the spice in the pumpkin cocoa is...
That's the wrong answer.
It's the wrong answer. I love the orange cake.
Okay, fine. Thank you. The olive oil cake was made by yours truly, and I just took a bite of Jamie's cake. Jamie's cocoa swirl, whatever the hell it is spectacular. And you know what we both said this morning? I want to reiterate. They're really simple. And when you create something great out of simplicity, it is really a tremendously wonderful feeling. You know?
Thank you.
And also, let's talk a little bit about the tips that you give people, like more vanilla, especially if you're using a high-quality vanilla. The recipe may only call for 1 teaspoon. Use 2. Vanilla enhances stuff. So tell people about some of the other tips you have.
Well, so there's just... what I was trying to... I'm always trying to do this. Trying to use the simplest ingredients so that people will not have to run out. That when I'm a whim baker, when I want to bake, I want to bake, and I want you to be able to bake on the spur of the moment too. So I try to get as much flavor as I can out of the simplest ingredients. So that's why one of my favorite tricks, and I learned it a while ago, is if you're grating lemon or orange, grate it over.
Oh, I love this.
Right?
Yeah.
Grate it over the sugar, then get your hands in there and squish. Did you do that?
Let me tell you, I forgot that. When I grated the orange on top of the sugar, and what is the word you use?
Yeah,
Smusher.
Smush.
When you put your hand in there, not only does it feel great, the smell
Isn't
is
it wonderful?
Unbelievable.
And not only are you getting like this double pleasure of smelling the citrus and feeling it between your fingers, you're actually getting more flavor into the cake because all the oils from the zest are going into the sugar. So it's, things like that.
And nuts. You said something about nuts.
Oh, so nuts. Nuts, aside from being delicious and adding flavor and adding texture, also make flavor last longer because you have to chew them more. So it's another way of bringing in more flavor using simple ingredients.
So can we ask the most important question? What do you think of Jamie? Come on, let's hear it. I mean, Jamie's in love. We know that. What do you think of Jamie Bologna?
I love Jamie.
Did this start over the Mediterranean shepherd's pie
So
in the
I think
kitchen
that,
at BUR?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you a quick story.
Okay.
I was a law student at NYU. I had no money. Once a week, I would go to 8th Street and go to a place called Shakespeare's, which was a little restaurant. And I would spend $8, which was a lot of money then, and I would have a shepherd's pie. And as a result of that treat, I made shepherd's pie for decades. And I was really happy, one of my best dishes. And then I encountered, the first time I met you, whatever the hell it's called, the what's that thing called?
I think it was called, I think it is still called the Mediterranean shepherd's pie. It's in Everyday Dory.
Everyday Dory. It's a variation on a theme, and it has changed my life, and I know it's changed Jamie's as well. It's unbelievable.
Is it the spices that did it for you?
Maybe it is, but also the spinach and the
there are a lot of vegetables, yeah.
And the combination of meats, because there's
squash.
beef and lamb, and it's got everything in it.
It's unbelievable.
It's
really changed everything.
I repeat, whether you want me here or not, I'm turning up every day.
I hope so.
I like it here.
Just bring a cake. Can you do that when you... What are you working on these days?
I'm working on the newsletter, and I've got an idea perking. I'm not ready to talk about it, but I'm not done yet.
We're on the edge of our seats. We're going to wait for this.
And by the way, you
idea
mentioned what your treasured favorites are, and as Andrea mentioned, the stories the stories that accompany these recipes really bring everything to life. It's a beautiful book, and you did a great job. And we're thrilled.
Thank
to
you
see
so much.
It makes us feel like we know you too as the chef, which is something you don't necessarily get from Martha Stewart. And I just want to say,
Dory hasn't done any jail time either.
No. I have a soft spot for Martha, who's always been incredibly kind to me. So.
Well, no, I wasn't trying to necessarily criticize her, but there is a warmth to your book that I can feel.
Thank you, because I like to, when I'm working on a recipe and I'm writing it, I think about someone in the kitchen, and I try to think, okay, what's going to happen? What do they need to know? And I try to be there with you. So thank you.
I just want to
Thank
say,
you.
Jim, I took a second bite of Jamie's cake, and I'm changing my vote. No, you
Not
know
only
why?
that, it gets worse.
But you know why? Because I took a bite. You see that seam of where he has the spices? I took the edge the first time. I took a bite from the seam.
Well, not only that, it gets
and I could
worse. You
taste it.
know what Jamie's doing? He just writes me a note. He's going to post the recipe for the pumpkin chocolate swirl bundt cake on our website, gbhnews.org/BPR. What about my damn olive oil cake?
Well, wait. What about my olive oil cake?
That's a very good
Yes,
point.
actually,
Sorry,
yeah,
I
he's
forgot.
right about that.
Dory, it's a thrill to see you.
Oh,
The
it's so
cookbook's
great
So nice to meet you.
pretty terrific
Thank you.
yourself.
Thank you.
Say
Go
hi
home
to
and
Joanne.
bake.
I am. I told them I'm going home to bake the granny's cake, the first one. I'm going to start slow, work my way up.
Grammy's easy cake.
Yes,
It's easy.
It is, and it sounds delicious.
Dory, it's
Thank you
wonderful
so
to see you.
much.
Take care. Say hi to Joanne for us.
I will.
See ya.
Dory Greenspan's latest is Dory's Anytime Cakes. I have it. I highly recommend it. It's available wherever you get your cookbooks or at DorieGreenspan.com. Coming up after this quick break, late last week at a naturalization ceremony in the Cradle of Liberty, Faneuil Hall in Boston, people were plucked out of line by federal agents unable to take their final step toward becoming a citizen after years of legal planning because of a new Trump rule. Reporter Sarah Betancourt broke the story for GBH News. She's going to join us next with someone who is intimately knowledgeable about the citizenship process and how this latest act from the federal government completely undermines it. I'm Andrea Cabral in for Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, Wonder takes the stage. The best-selling novel that became a hit film is now a musical, making its world premiere at the American Repertory Theater. Playwright Sarah Rule joins us to talk about writing the show's book and shaping the story of Augie Pullman, a boy born with a facial difference, and why wonder endures with its call for empathy and understanding. Tune in for that and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Rocky Ruggiero, making art and history come to life, offering travel programs throughout Italy and online learning opportunities on Italian art and culture. Learn more at rockyruggiero.com. And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer, the Unclaimed Property Division, is holding unclaimed funds from utility bills, uncashed paychecks, savings accounts, and more. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov.
Last week, a group of immigrants approved to become citizens went to Faneuil Hall for the long-awaited moment to pledge allegiance to the United States. But instead of passing that final citizenship hurdle on a journey that takes years, multiple interviews, background checks, some people were pulled out of line based on their country of origin, according to exclusive, terrific reporting from GBH News. At naturalization events across the country in accordance with a new Trump executive order, all immigration options for people from 19 specific countries are being halted. GBH reporter Sarah Betancourt broke the story. She joins us now on Zoom alongside Gail Breslow, Executive Director of Project Citizenship, which works with immigrants seeking naturalization to become American citizens. Sarah, Gail, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on.
You know, before we get into the details of this unbelievably horrible and cruel story of Faneuil Hall, Gail, a lot of people may not be familiar with your organization. Tell us specifically, what do you do?
Citizenship has a singular mission. It's a nonprofit organization that provides free legal services to lawful permanent residents, so green card holders, who are interested in pursuing their eligibility for citizenship. So we serve throughout the process from beginning to end. As you mentioned, it's a long and arduous process. We serve as the attorney of record for all of our clients and advise them along the way in terms of their eligibility and how to proceed and what documents they need to gather, and preparing them for that very special day when they take the oath of allegiance to the United States of America, which our clients and others were slated to do last week.
So before we get to Sarah and the details of that story, one last thing with you, Gail. Following the shooting of the two National Guards people from West Virginia, one of whom died and one of whom is recovering, from what I understand, Trump changed the rules of asylum, the rules of applying for citizenship from 19 countries. Can you give us a brief summary of what's different from what was prior to those shootings?
Yeah, well, after the tragedy, the horrific shootings, indeed, the Trump administration used that opportunity to essentially pause all immigration services, naturalization, including naturalization for individuals from 19 so-called travel ban countries. That includes not only Afghanistan, but Venezuela, Haiti, Somalia, Eritrea. I mean, it's a list of 19 random countries that they've singled out.
And no asylum hearings at all, right? Is that correct? Regardless.
That's correct.
Okay.
Everything is paused.
Okay.
Yeah. Up to and including, so we had, many clients who received notification that either their interview with USCIS, which is, the final stage of vetting, or literally their oath ceremony was canceled. And as you suggested, when someone is there for their naturalization ceremony, they've already been approved for citizenship. I mean, this is one step away from denaturalizing people who have already become citizens. I mean, when you go for your oath ceremony, your naturalization certificate is already printed out for you, and you're there literally to raise your hand and swear allegiance to this country, and then experience the joy and celebration and pride of everyone who's in that room. You have already been fully vetted. You've been background checked, you've been fingerprinted, you've had your knowledge of U.S. civics tested, you've had your knowledge of the English language tested. And so it is, just the final step in what has been a very long process.
Sarah, I've got a lot of questions about the way that these apprehensions were effectuated, but start first by telling people exactly what happened here.
I appreciate the question. So I sort of want to preface this with, in fiscal year 2024, almost 24,000 people in Massachusetts were naturalized, right? And in this situation, we have the federal government, because of the situation in Washington, saying, look, we're going to place a travel ban and these countries on the travel ban list in this category of people we're not going to consider applications for them. So we had a group of people, according to Gail and others, who were at Faneuil Hall for that final step of being naturalized, that were in line and were asked, what is your country of origin? And based off of the administration's decisions on that, decided you're not able to proceed further.
And this is inside Faneuil Hall.
My understanding is yes. Gail can speak to that further. We have spoken to a couple of people who did not wish to be named for this story. But I do have it on good authority that MIRA, for instance, MIRA Coalition that works with so many immigrant advocacy organizations, had 4 clients that were pulled out of that line on Thursday. And additionally, other people are receiving notification that, hey, your oath ceremony is canceled. We're not going to give you further guidance on this.
And just to be clear, the people who work for immigration and naturalization who perform this ceremony, they are employees, essentially, because it's an agency of Homeland Security. So these weren't ICE agents asking the question. These were the officials who effectuate the ceremony, right?
We've heard from multiple sources that it was USCIS officials. And for naturalization ceremonies, it is typically a judge or a USCIS official. Judges often sort of politely, happily fight each other because it's such a joyous occasion to have naturalization happen. People bring their family members, they FaceTime people from abroad. Everything's pretty set up. And this definitely put a stop to that very suddenly for a lot of people.
Yeah, what happens to these people now? Those who were pulled out a line and just the cruelest, most unnecessary of fashion. What happens to those people?
Yeah, it's a great question. We don't have any further information forthcoming from USCIS about what is happening next. USCIS, has announced that they're opening a vetting center in Atlanta to do enhanced security checks. Again, these people have already been through all of that. And our clients have just been notified that, their ceremony was canceled and they should stay tuned for further notice. But there's been no forthcoming information about what the administration plans to do next.
Gail, here's what I'm sorry, Sarah, go ahead. And then I have a question for Gail.
I was going to say there's already a level of confusion on social media as well. I mean, there's a lot of Facebook groups around naturalization of people who are so close to that step and they want other supporters, people from the same community who are going through the same thing to bounce ideas off of. And a lot of them are posting, well, I had my oath ceremony canceled. Do you know why? Has anyone else had this situation happen? And I don't know what to do next.
Here's what baffles me. This is pursuant to a travel ban from these countries, which I suggest are scattered but are not random. They are all either African countries, Caribbean countries, countries that have large Islamic populations. No one is getting a travel ban out of Norway or Sweden or whites from South Africa. So let's be really clear about, who these travel bans are affecting. But what I don't understand are these are people who are have actively worked and are seeking to become American citizens. They are not in the process of travel. There's no evidence that they've traveled outside the country or done anything in any way to pose a threat. So how is it under this provision that they can deny them their naturalization?
Yeah, it's a great question, Andrea. I mean, this is, not only xenophobic, but racist in every way. Our client who was turned away at the door, she was inside the door, outside the door when she was turned away at Faneuil Hall. She's from Haiti. She has been in this country for over 20 years with a lawful, with a green card, a lawful permanent resident for over 20 years. She's in her mid-50s. I mean, she's lived half her life in the United States, and she has made this country her home. And, one can only fathom what motivation the Trump administration has to target her and people like her. And I'll just add that, in this day and age, citizenship is really the best defense for anyone who isn't a U.S. citizen. And our doors have been, we've been flooded this year with potential clients who are eager to achieve that extra security and safety that comes from citizenship, that in the absence of which, you can get picked up off the street. So the seriousness of this is it can't be understated, and the awfulness of this situation occurring literally, at Faneuil Hall, the irony of that, it can't be overstated.
We should make clear for people who've only been paying half attention to this story since the shootings of the two West Virginia National Guards people is, well, as always, we haven't talked about asylum at all today because it's obviously a different process. As always, Trump's response to this is to blame Joe Biden. Asylum was granted to this shooter during the Trump administration in April. Not by Joe Biden. Sarah Betancourt, we have no idea at all, nor do these people, when these pauses, and let's hope they're just pauses, whether it's on asylum hearings or on the naturalization process. We have no idea when this halt's going to come to an end, do we?
No, we don't. USCIS has directed its employees to halt adjudicating all immigration pathways for people from those 19 countries deemed to be high risk. We also have a massive backlog in the immigration courts already. So people who had pending dates for immigration cases are going to deal with waiting even longer and having that ambiguity. in the case of these 19 countries, especially Afghans that were potentially coming here on SIV visas or other methods.
Special immigration visas given to people who risk their own lives to help our
us.
soldiers in Afghanistan.
Right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Sarah.
All the political capital that was gained in the past 10 months by people advocating for them, it's completely gone.
Yeah.
Maya, I have an idea about some of the other motivations beyond the racist sort of xenophobic thing. And I said this earlier in my segment on Thursday on the show. It's to prevent people from voting. You can't, if you don't have your citizenship today, then you can't vote in the 2026 election. And it's to have a chilling effect on people who have the right to vote, going there, not going to the polling places because they're afraid that they could be pulled out of line on any for
Even
any
if you're
pretext.
a citizen.
Even if you're a citizen. So it's got a dual purpose in my view.
Hey, thank you both for your work, by the way, and the reporting. And please stay in touch with us, Sarah and Gail. We really appreciate it.
We've been speaking with GBH reporter Sarah Betancourt and Gail Breslow, who's the executive director of Project Citizenship, gbhnews.org. You can go there for more of Sarah's excellent reporting on this. Coming up after the 1 o'clock news, we're going to speak with food policy analyst Corby Kummer. I'm Andrea Cabral, in for Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News.
GBH is your home for quality local news and conversations that matter to you. Listener support is essential to providing the critical resources needed to cover the issues of the day with accuracy and accountability. Pitch in online at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And North Shore Music Theater, presenting the 36th anniversary production of their musical version of A Christmas Carol, on stage at Bill Haney's North Shore Music Theater, December 4th through 21st. nsmt.org. And MIT Federal Credit Union, offering a variety of certificate options to help members build emergency funds, plan for retirement, or save for the future. Learn more at mitfcu.org, federally insured by NCUA.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Hour 3 of BPR. We'll start the third hour with Tufts food policy analyst Corby Kummer on the latest threats to SNAP, withholding benefits from blue states like Massachusetts over refusals to share immigration data. Plus, why it might be the wrong or maybe the right week to quit caffeine.
I'm Andrea Cabral, in for Marjorie Egan. Then we'll end the show with you and Jim's favorite topic, astrology. Are you attuned to the story and the stars and their astrological impact on your life? Or are you like Jim, typical Earth sign who dismisses the whole concept as woo-woo? What's astrology mean to you? And what happens when you find out someone you like is totally into it? Call or text next on the third hour of BPR on 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Healthcare subsidies that were expanded during the pandemic expire at the end of the month. NPR's Deirdre Walsh reports on the push on Capitol Hill to renew them to spare tens of millions of Americans from higher costs.
The Senate will vote this week on a Democratic bill that extends existing healthcare tax credits for 3 years. Senate Majority Leader John Thune says it is not a serious proposal. The Democrats' bill is not expected to advance, and Thune has not decided if the GOP will put up its own alternative. In the House, Virginia Republican Jen Kiggins is pushing a bipartisan proposal for a shorter extension.
I have 40,000 people in my district who rely on this health care, and doing nothing to prevent a spike in their premiums is wrong.
House Speaker Mike Johnson says he will unveil a bill this week and hold a vote before the end of the year. Lawmakers from both parties say if President Trump fails to negotiate a deal, Congress won't be able to head off major price increases. Deirdre Walsh, NPR News.
Hamas says it's willing to lay down its weapons against Israeli forces in a ceasefire in Gaza. In Doha, Qatar, NPR's Daniel Estrin reports on that and more from his interview with a senior member of the Palestinian militant group.
Bassem Naim is a member of Hamas's political leadership who survived Israeli airstrikes on Hamas leaders in Qatar in September. He tells NPR that Hamas in Gaza is willing to store its weapons with guarantees that they would not use them against Israel as long as there are political negotiations to create a Palestinian state.
We are ready to lay down these weapons. I mean, not to use it for 5, 7, 10 years, as long as we are not attacked.
Previously, Hamas had not been willing to discuss laying down its weapons. It's unclear if Israel and Hamas can reach an agreement on what will happen with the weapons. Israel demands Gaza be demilitarized. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Doha, Qatar.
In the wake of concerns from key supporters, President Trump's promising $12 billion in one-time payments to farmers adversely affected when he hiked tariffs on imports and demand for U.S.-made goods abroad dropped. China's trade surplus has grown into record territory. NPR's Scott Horsley reports on the latest export figures from the world's second largest economy and other major developments traders are tracking.
China's exports to the United States have dropped sharply in the face of President Trump's tariffs, but China is still finding plenty of customers elsewhere around the world. The country's overall exports in November were up nearly 6% from a year ago, and China's trade surplus for the year topped $1 trillion for the first time. Paramount is challenging Netflix over its planned purchase of Warner Brothers Discovery. Paramount's going to shareholders with a counteroffer. President Trump said the Netflix acquisition, quote, could be a problem because the combined company's outsized market share. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A major section of the Green Line is closed for the next 2 weeks. Riders will have to rely on shuttle buses and the Orange Line while the shutdown is in place till December 23rd. As GBH's Jeremy Siegel reports, crews are replacing electrical equipment from more than a century ago.
In the 1890s, workers in Boston dug the first underground subway tunnel in the country. Today, it makes up the downtown portion of the Green Line. Only problem is, some of that 1890s infrastructure is still there. During the shutdown, crews will be replacing a 130-year-old wooden overhead wire trough and making some overall upgrades. Trolleys will be out of service starting at North Station and running through Babcock Street on the B branch, Kenmore on the C and D branches, and Heath Street on the E branch. Jeremy Siegel, GBH News.
Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons is not pleased after a nativity scene at a Catholic church in Dedham was set up to protest the agency's immigrant removal practices. At issue is the nativity scene at St. Susanna's Parish with a huge sign that reads, "ICE was here." But missing from the nativity scene are Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, hinting that they were detained by ICE. Lyons isn't the only one upset. Mass Live reports that the Archdiocese of Boston is also unhappy, and the Department of Homeland Security spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin also jumped into the fray, claiming ICE does not separate families. Boston Archdiocese says a decision on what to do with the creche will be made today. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance. Progressive is looking for dedicated and forward-thinking individuals to join their growing team. More information, including application, at progressive.com/careers.
Welcome to Hour 3 of BPR. Jim Browdy, that would be me. Andrea Cabral, that would be her. She's the former Secretary of Public Safety for Massachusetts, sitting in for Marjorie. Hello again, Andrea.
Hello again, Jim.
Streaming you too. By the way, Andrew, if you're listening, before we had a contest in terms of the two cakes, the one that I baked and the one that Jamie baked originally, because I think she confused who made which. She said she liked my cake better. And before the segment was over, she did a 180, which I will not forget. In any case, we're joined now on Zoom. Dorie Greenspan was actually here, a good buddy of our next guest. Joined now on Zoom by food policy analyst, multiple James Beard winner, Corby Kummer. Corby's the executive director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, senior editor at The Atlantic, and a senior lecturer at the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. Hey, Corby.
I am a cake eater, and I am not in the studio with you testing Jamie versus Jim with my pal Dory. I don't know, but it was very hard to listen to and know I couldn't have those cakes.
I want you to know, Dory immediately went for Jamie's. She smiled at me when she picked Jamie's.
And she was right.
Andrea picked mine and then thought better of it. And so at the end...
Because I did Jamie a disservice. I kind of tasted it from the edge of it. And if you once you got into the middle of it, it was just bursting with
mine
flavor.
tastes good, edge and middle.
Yours was good. It was really, really good.
Okay, nice
but I
try.
like Jamie's more.
Okay, good to see you, Corby. Corby, so the SNAP crisis, we've said this a million times on the show. Many people in this country, I fear, are of the opinion that as soon as the government shutdown, the longest in American history, ended, problems with SNAP are over. But the estimates from experts are that thanks to the big, beautiful bill law, as many as 150,000 people in Massachusetts alone could lose SNAP benefits. Governor Healy is not aberrational. Most governors, even in blue states, are saying they can't possibly make up the amount of money that is going to disappear from people who are dependent upon food assistance from the federal government. That's a fair statement, yes?
Oh, yeah, it's a rolling crisis. The administration is trying to get hundreds of, really millions of people of the 42 million who rely on SNAP off the rolls. Right now, the crisis as of last week is when USDA Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins said that the administration would halt SNAP payments to residents of 21 blue states that have refused to turn over data.
Including ours, by the way, but yeah.
Including Massachusetts, because the administration has been sharing that data with ICE to try to get people off the roll. So maybe one person in a household legitimately, or by the administration standards, legitimately applies for SNAP benefits, but there are others who shouldn't be receiving them. And so the blue states are saying it's illegal for you to be sharing this data, like Health and Human Services data is being shared with ICE agents. We're not going to do it. A number of courts across the country have upheld that right not to share the data, but the administration is ignoring those injunctions and ignoring those orders and saying, anyway, we're withholding SNAP money. So there's no trusting this administration to keep the SNAP faucet on.
And I just want to stress that, Corby, the issue of whether or not states have any obligation to provide this information, regardless of what the big, beautiful bill says, is very much in question. Courts, one thing doesn't necessarily rely on the other. So it's not that the states that are refusing to provide it are violating the law, but two, this is money that Congress appropriated, even in an emergency capacity for SNAP. So how does one administration, and particularly one president, still withhold that money?
Simply by flouting the law, flouting court orders, flouting congressional appropriations, which have been really unchecked by the Congress mostly until now.
So what fills the gap here? We've heard from Governor Healy. We've heard from states. People, I was really heartened to see that on Giving Tuesday, people really, made it a point to be charitable. I think we gave $4 billion, and a lot of that was to fill these gaps. How long can that sustain?
Well, it can't, because when we were hearing about the emergency funds that states were going to tap to try to keep November SNAP benefits during the shutdown going, it was 2 to 4 weeks maximum in all of their funds. So states cannot match the gap for SNAP benefits. There's lots of gaps that they can try to match, but this is huge. It's $7 billion a month, is it, from the feds? And there's just no way that states can make that up. And so it's the administration. I don't know if the administration is going to follow through with the 21 blue states, but they do seem to flout court orders that they can't withhold these payments, and they seem to just be waiting for the states to back down. It's this constant threat and assumption that the states will back down.
By the way, we should say one last thing about this, which we say every time we talk about SNAP, and we'll keep saying it. For those who have lost their compassion for people who are suffering through tough Times, which sadly seems to be a decent percentage of our population, the vast majority of people who receive SNAP benefits are working. And as we learned last week in a wonderful Globe research story, a lot of them are working for very, very, very wealthy companies that decide to underpay them so that the hole can be filled with your tax dollars. So these are people exactly like us who are just needing a little help at a particular time. And one of the most fundamental
caring for ill parents and caring for children.
In much the same way as most of the people who are on Medicaid are disabled or elderly people. And why this doesn't cause everyone in this country to ask why we're constantly having to fight the executive branch and the President of the United States to make people's lives better, and fighting against him as he tries to make people suffer is beyond me. Why that should be the question on the front page of every paper every single day, if you ask me. Anyway, so now we're seeing a few games here, I think. I call them games. With Trump and his tariffs, he's decided all of a sudden that not all tariffs are created equal, and some of them he needs and some of them he doesn't. Can you explain a little bit about that, Corby?
Well, if he wants to help Argentina, for example, he'll order the United States to buy their beef. And if he wants to help consumers, what they've learned is grocery prices helped win Trump the election. That Biden did not keep a lid on grocery prices. They know they have to pay attention to this. So it was coffee. I don't have the list in front of me of the tariffs the Trump administration lifted recently.
Coffee, bananas, beef, tomatoes, and I forget the fifth. There were 5 of them.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the fifth was. Yeah.
Thank you. But they continue to play with foreign aid and buying things from other countries. Soybeans. Was it soybeans in Argentina because China stopped buying U.S. soybeans? There's all these constant games they're playing to help the countries that are in favor with the administration or run by right-wing allies Trump wants to bail out. And it's usually at the price of the U.S. farmer and the U.S. consumer. And so I think that you just heard on the news that they're going to announce a $12 billion tariff relief for farmers at a press conference this afternoon. The Trump administration, sadly, that's not going to go to the hundreds of farmers who have lost money in the farm to school program that was abruptly pulled in February. Small farmers had been relying on those purchases so that their local farm food could go to schools, but they put in capital investments and they had to eat that and make up for that. No, it's going to go to soybean farmers who lost the China market. So at least they're trying to relieve farmers because apparently Republican lawmakers have been telling the Trump administration, you can't keep doing this. You've got to start bailing out farmers. It's not the small farmers, it's commodity crop farmers.
Go ahead, Andrew. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, but the industrial farmers, the really big ones, are the ones that get the subsidies. There's no relief for the small farmer at all. They're already getting the subsidies. Is there any consideration for the smaller farmers anywhere in the big beautiful bill or anywhere in the tariff relief?
No, not that I've seen, because they don't really count for the Trump administration, which is curious because in Trump 1 they did. And there was relief for them when policies, they weren't tariffs, but policies were hurting small farmers. Oh, it was COVID. It was COVID relief. And Trump stepped in and did help them. But, right now, Trump offered a $20 billion bailout to Argentina when soybean crops to replace those from U.S. farmers. It's completely irrational, of course, but it's to help Trump allies. They don't seem to want to help small farmers.
So staying on the negative side of the ledger here, flesh-eating worms in cattle coming from Mexico has caused quite the crisis on the southern border. What's going on? Why are they coming back? What's happening exactly?
This is a really interesting story. Screwworms, how can you forget that name once you hear them? They're flesh-eating maggots.
Nice.
They were a huge problem in cattle in the beginning of the 20th century. And so there were millions and millions, when millions really meant something, in the 20s to 50s, that the U.S. spent trying to eradicate these pests because they decimate cattle herds. Recently, they've been discovered in a few Mexican beef cattle herds, and that caused the U.S. to turn off and close border regions like Nogales, Arizona. And the Washington Post went out and interviewed owners of shipment lots that had survived on the transshipment of cattle from Mexico into the U.S. That was a very important source of beef cattle. Beef cattle herds have been going down for various reasons in the U.S. anyway, so prices of beef have been going way up. But the screwworm isn't just irrational. You don't want it to come in because it'll infect U.S. herds, and there's no really good way, short of shutting off the transshipment areas from the Mexico to the U.S. So cattle herds reducing, higher prices for beef, but no easy answer. And on a small local level in Texas and Arizona that relied on the industry of importing these cattle from to be finished. Finished means they'll eat corn, they'll get fat in a way that buyers want on huge feedlots in Texas and Arizona. Then they'll be sold into the U.S. market. So these cattle to be finished for a couple of months on U.S. grain, which is subsidized, Andrea, because almost all the subsidies go to animal feed. They don't go to anything that we consider human food. That's called specialty crops, and there's almost no money for them. But in any case, a lot of these border state industries and businesses are being driven out of business by the shutdown, and there's really no end in sight.
What should Trump be doing?
Spending more money on infection control and disease control, and taking a chapter from, I think that these efforts from the USDA went on well into the 1960s, and seeing what worked before to reopen the flow from Mexico to the US, and trying to spend on that. But it's not something you can blame just on the current administration's whimsy.
But how can he do that with a CDC whose experience and expertise and knowledge has been decimated?
The Emerging Zoonotic Diseases Department is what it's called at the CDC. There's a whole lot of interlocking disease tracing mechanisms within the CDC that aren't much understood by the public. They don't necessarily have to be, but all those programs are currently being decimated by the current administration. And more than that, they are trying to suppress data that they don't consider flattering. So the actual tracking mechanisms, as you point out, Andrea, are being curtailed. They're not being eliminated. I don't know how that is affecting tracking screwworm, which has been very much in the news for the past couple of months. Disease eradication programs they should be concentrating on.
Can we move on from the screwworm just for a second to something that has nothing?
Don't you love saying it?
I do, actually. And it's with me now forevermore. Let's stay away from Trump for a few minutes. You wrote a book once called The Joy of Coffee, which could be my autobiography, actually.
Mine too.
Well, there you go.
Love
Two of us. There's a whole quit caffeine movement happening that's being adopted by lots of cafes. Why? Why are people running away? Well, why are some people deciding that caffeine should be reduced or either eliminated from their diets, Corby Kummer?
Well, I'm awfully glad that you put the emphasis on some, because the New York Times ran this big picture special, and it was one of those, oh gosh, 2 or 3 people have told me in the last couple of weeks that there's a reduction of caffeine. So maybe it's going to link to dry January. I'm going to get ahead of dry January stories with lower caffeine. But a couple of things that emerged in this story were that in the afternoon, when people want to go to cafes, to the so-called third place that we all missed during the pandemic, a place to go, meet friends, meet colleagues, work, have people distraction to look at. The wonderful cafe metropolis that before the pandemic was emerging as an entire culture in Brooklyn of people at laptops all day. In the afternoon, they don't necessarily want to get wired and have caffeine. Cafes have to have something that will continue their profit margins and earn the rent of those tables and counters that they're and electrical outlets if they haven't covered them over as many places have. So they need to have other kinds of drinks. Decaf has always been the stepchild of cafes who will say, oh no, why should we do that? We don't have caffeine. We don't have decaf. I spent a lot of time in the Joy of Coffee going to various decaf plants because I drink a lot of decaf. I start off in the morning with half and half caffeine decaf, and then by noon I'm at all decaf. So I'm always in search of non-caffeinated drinks. And I really liked the idea of the hojicha, which is a Japanese tea that's roasted, and so it tastes like barley, it tastes malted, it tastes kind of like coffee, and it's really good. So, and rooibos tea with different kinds of sugar syrup that were quoted in the story. I think it's terrific that there are more and more inventive alternatives. It's kind of the mocktail phenomenon.
Well, I have to say, tea has never done it for me, with very few exceptions. Can we get back to, I'm glad you brought this up, decaffeinated coffee. I am fairly frugal, I should say. Well, that's not fair to say. I know I can find a discount as well as anybody, and it gives me great joy to find a discount. The one exception, there are a few where I'll spend top dollar, is for the best decaf. And I have to say, I've been drinking coffee for like half a century, and I don't think I've ever had an extraordinary cup of decaf in my whole life. Mr. Joy of Coffee, why can't they perfect the decaf bean to the point where we big-time coffee drinkers would barely, if at all, know the difference? I really am mystified.
Well, for one thing, the best decaf is still made with methylene chloride, which is often feared because dry cleaners used it, and it was...
Well, that's a good reason to fear it, I think,
it was
pretty
called
much.
carcinogen, but I am convinced that in the tiny amounts it's used in the decaf process, it doesn't harm coffee. Swiss water has been successively perfected. It's not quite perfect yet. It's not, but the body and the flavor are better in chemically treated decaf. So try Illy Cafe, but some of the
try which?
ILLY. You know, we go through.
Are you backing up your truck as you're talking to us, or what are you doing?
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Outside my window.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Nobody's backing up a truck.
Okay.
If you buy the blue cans of Illy roasted decaf, it's quite good. The things that matter, though.
He's writing it down. He's going to buy it.
I am. I'm doing it right after the show.
It's the degree of roasting and the seriousness with which the person making or roasting it actually takes decaf. You might not have had great decaf because most roasters don't care enough to look for sources of coffee they really value and coffee they really value that's been carefully decaffeinated. It's not so easy for them to find. So they're just not working very hard to find it. But if it's been kind of dark roasted and it's been used, the chemical process, you can have very good and convincing results.
Okay, so can I ask one last personal question? And maybe I should be asking a doctor instead of you, but you're the coffee book writer. Maybe it's psychological. I am of the belief that I badly need at least several cups of coffee in the morning to start the day, or I'm going to drag. Keep that in the back of your mind when I tell you the following. I could have a cup of a caffeinated espresso at midnight and be asleep at 12:01. So explain to me why at the beginning of the day I'm convinced I need this caffeine jolt, and at the end of the day a caffeine jolt doesn't stop me from sleeping. Can you explain that, please?
Well, I did read 312 articles, that figure is seared into my head, on caffeine only. For my book, there have been thousands of articles published since. And one of the main points in all of them is individual reaction to caffeine varies. There's no general rule. Lots of people in Brazil told me, I have to have coffee in the morning to wake up, but if I get up in the middle of the night, I have some coffee and it helps me get back to sleep.
Well, there you go, I guess.
It's the same for lots of different people. It varies for everyone. One of the main points that's really important, though, is once you become habituated to it, you have to have it. You get headaches, you get caffeine withdrawal. That's a very real phenomenon that Jews at Yom Kippur who fast coffee remember every year. But if you slowly taper it down, if you want to eliminate caffeine, you stop noticing it after a very difficult week to 10 days.
Corby, you'll be glad to hear that unlike Jim, I don't use our guests as my personal therapist to answer all of my questions.
Why else are they here? What do we have them here for?
I'm going to ask you something completely altruistic, which is when I read the story about lower calf alternatives, I thought cafes, which many of which have been struggling post-pandemic, now have an opportunity to expand their menus. So where do you see this going when they get to where they have greater offerings?
I think it's terrific that they do. What they have to do is make them sufficiently appealing to their customers. Give them free tastings. There's ginger, elderberry, licorice, hojicha drinks. Think of bubble tea places. I mean, that's all caffeine, but it's got all kinds of sugar and tapioca bubbles in it. They've proliferated, so it's building an audience for them. And I think it's wonderful, not just for the lower caffeine, but for finding anything that'll bring people through the door and help them pay their rents and their staff.
How great are those tapioca bowls, by the way? Let's talk tapioca bowls. Oh, my God.
Never had one.
No. You've never had bubble tea?
No.
And you have the thick straw, and you suck on it hard, and about 9 tapioca bowls slam into your upper whatever. Oh, my.
That sounds incredibly appetizing.
Am I right or am I right, Corby?
It's like a kid's game. I mean, it's like discovering a new kind of
I don't know why I've never had it. I just never have.
I am actually writing a sequel to Joy of Coffee. It's called The Joy of Tapioca Bowls. Corby is editing it.
A winner.
It should be out in the spring. Hey, Corby.
Good to see you.
It's nice to see you. Be well.
And you.
Corby Kummer.
We've been speaking with
You never had a tapioca bowl?
I've never had a tapioca.
You never had bubble tea?
No,
I'll buy you. Next time we're together, I'll buy you. But they're really sweet. Does that... I mean, it's really sweet. But it's like a dessert kind of thing, essentially. Okay, fine. All right, go ahead. Good.
We've been speaking.
It's not as good as Jamie's cake, obviously, but it's really good. It's much better than my cake, but it's not as good as Jamie's cake.
You are so never going to get over that. We've been speaking with Corby Kummer. He's the executive director of the Food and Society.
Jamie's cake was like out of a box. I mean, mine was really fresh.
Are you going to let me finish the outro?
No, go right ahead. Go, keep talking. Go.
Well, as I was saying, he's executive director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, senior editor at The Atlantic, senior lecturer at the Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy. Coming up after this quick break, if I choose to come back, we'll open the lines to get to your thoughts on the amateur astrologers among us. Do you believe that the alignment of cosmic entities shapes our patterns of behavior here on Earth? Maybe you're just in it for the escapism. Or you're in denial of its divinatory powers. Either way, we want to hear your thoughts on astrology next. I'm Andrea Cabrolman from Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy, and he's really hurt that I didn't say his cake was the best. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News.
Scientists have discovered millions of new species on Earth since the 1700s, and we are averaging 17,000 more every year. But how many more are there?
The range of estimates of how many species are out there are from the low millions to the low trillions.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly. The mission to better understand life on our own planet, on All Things Considered, from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865. And Porter Square Books, with locations in Cambridge and Boston, offering a range of books for holiday gifts. Book recommendations, holiday bundles, and more holiday gift options at portersquarebooks.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan is out today. She's back tomorrow. I am Jim Browdy. She's Andrea Cabral. Andrea is in for Marjorie, obviously. Streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow. We're not going to do Trump after I make this following comment. The headline in the Washington Post, Andrea, Supreme Court seems poised to expand Trump's power over independent agencies by allowing him to fire an FTC commissioner. Essentially, this court has said, whatever you want, whatever power you want, we will, no matter what the precedent is, we will give it to you.
We find no obligation to represent all of the American people to place any faith in precedent. They've had the bit in their teeth since they first came into power, and they're not letting it go. And yes, they are going to let it. But what they're not remembering is if they're not successful in making sure there's never another free and fair election in this country, they will have to deal with a Democrat president who has all of the power that they have given that president.
Well, that's a very good point. And by the way, Carol Rose, the head of the Civil Liberties Union, will be with us tomorrow, and we'll discuss a lot of this power shifting. We're ending the show somewhere I am very uncomfortable discussing astrology. I don't believe in astrology. I would put it firmly in the pseudoscience category. Those who do believe think there is a connection between the location of celestial bodies and our human personalities. Exactly. That is exactly right. And behaviors. Someone in this studio, though, does believe in it. A new Washington Post article from the paper's Department of Data has piqued our interest. Why, for example, are lawyers more likely to be Tauruses? An earth sign named after the constellation in the shape of the bull, known for their determination and, some might say, stubbornness. I, myself, am a Taurus. I discovered this, thank you, enough of that. I discovered this morning when our coworker Zoe asked Andrea, this is our staff meeting, to guess my sign. Andrea did it without any hesitation. Our executive, she'll explain in a minute why. Our executive producer, Jamie, is a Cancer, known for their emotions and care for others. Jamie did bake an entire cake to share with the team today. I brought only enough slices of my own cake for Andrea and me to have. No, actually, and Dory. Andrea is a Sagittarius, whatever that is, a fire sign, thank you, known for honesty, who's also a little reactionary, which might, I don't know what that means, which might explain why doing the show takes so much out of her every time she fills in. So, which side are you on? Is there something to this celestial connection stuff? Or as one commentator in the Washington Post writes, is this just the latest endeavor from HHS Secretary RFK Jr. and his brainworm? Next, we'll find some astrological connection to vaccines. The number is 877-301-8970. Are you a believer in astrology, like apparently Andrea is, or a complete doubter, a fake news kind of guy when it comes to astrology like me? How'd you know without literally even taking a breath that I was a Taurus when Zoe asked you this morning?
Because you are one of the most headstrong and stubborn people.
Thank you.
I know.
Thank you. I really
fortunately for you, you are also very logical, incredibly intelligent.
Thank you.
And you're right most of the time.
I am.
So you're not what I would call an offensive Taurus. An offensive Taurus would be somebody who's stubborn and wrong most of the time, or just, But no, I knew instantly that you were. There was no question in my mind that you were a Taurus.
And I am.
You know what you know, and you know it, and that's
I am the way I am because of the positioning of something. Is that why?
No, that is your that's your astrological sign. Yes, you were born within a certain span of months, right, on a certain date, and that sort of dictates your personality. I am 100% Sagittarius.
Why does it dictate my personality, and why does it dictate yours?
I don't know. People who've been studying this for a lot longer than we have came to these conclusions, but you meet people where it absolutely fits. My mother, I have, most of the people in my family are fire signs. Leos, Aries.
What's a fire sign mean?
Well, the fire signs are Leo, Aries, Sagittarius. I think it's just those three.
Well, what does it mean, the fire sign? What does that mean?
You tend, like you said, to be a little reactionary. Fire signs need balance. They need to be with people who are either water signs or earth signs because of the way we are. And every Sagittarius I know, everybody who is a fire sign that I know, we have some of the same personality traits. Earth signs are the same, and water signs are the same.
How can you believe in this if you don't understand when I said to you, why does it work, and you have no idea how it works? How can you believe in that?
Why don't you ask that question of anybody who adheres to a religion?
I do.
Oh, so then you're a Taurus who's incredibly stubborn and also has very few friends. So that's what you do.
Marjorie has just come into the studio. The number is 877-301-8970. Our topic is astrology. You have a believer, you have a non-believer. We want to know which side you are on and why.
I'm not a person who follows astrology. I just know that I know what my personality is. When I read what my zodiac sign is and the traits within that zodiac sign, it absolutely is. I have other people.
So do you read, we're going to get to you all in a minute, do you read, I don't even know if it's in the paper anymore, I assume it's in some papers, do you read the daily astrological, whatever the hell they are?
No, not usually, because those are supposed to be for everybody, but I would go to someone who I would have my chart read.
You would?
I mean, I don't understand why it's so difficult for you to believe that there might be more things out there that determine who you are and what your place is in the world than what you see earthbound, as you sit here earthbound. Why do you have trouble believing that?
I don't know why. 877-301-8970. I'll try to figure that out before 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Let's go to Rodrigo. You're in D.C. Welcome to the show. Which side are you on here, Rodrigo?
Hi, Rodrigo.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. Of
course.
I guess the first question I would have for Andrea is, if you ran into someone who was an anti-vaxxer, how would you feel about that?
I disagree with everything that they stood for on anti-vaxxing, because my belief in science does not negate my belief in some aspects of astrology. I don't know a huge amount about astrology, but I do know that before I knew what a Sagittarius was, I exhibited the personality traits of what people say a Sagittarius is.
So my take on that is two things. I mean, first of all, I just want to say, ever since I was, maybe 8 years old, I've been very opposed to astrology because it was against everything I understood as someone who believed in science. And then my impression of a lot of people who do believe in astrology is kind of like what I would call a frequency bias. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, where you buy a car and all of a sudden you start seeing that same model everywhere. And so then if you think that Jim is stubborn because he's a certain astrological sign, then all of a sudden you'll be noticing his stubbornness way more than you would have noticed otherwise.
Thinking. I like that.
I didn't know he was a Taurus until today. I've been saying he was stubborn and hard-headed, albeit behind his back. I've known him for 20 years.
That's a very good point. Hey, Rodrigo, that was an excellent call. Make another one. Thank you for doing that. Now, there's something, you ever heard of the Wheel of Zodiac YouTube channel?
Yeah,
You have?
No, I haven't heard of it, but I'm talking about the sound you can.
Now, they have something about Tauruses, I am one of them, is considered one of the most dangerous signs, and apparently here's why. Here it is.
Everyone thinks Scorpio is the scariest sign. Yeah. But Taurus is worse, and nobody sees it coming. Taurus is chill, calm, quiet. They hate drama, they mind their business. But that's exactly why they're dangerous. You'll never know they're angry until it's way too late.
You sound like serial killers.
It does. It really does. Qu'est-ce que c'est? So Tim in Newton says, sorry, I'm talking to Nancy Reagan now. I'll be right with you on this subject. Nancy Reagan was a big ass. Didn't she have someone at the White House?
Yeah, she
who
did
was
all
doing
that.
astrological whatever things or whatever it is? Okay, fine. 877-301-8970.
Let's see what's happening with Jean in Woonsocket.
Hello, Jean in Woonsocket.
How's Woonsocket?
Hello. I was calling to say that we went to Ireland recently and went to the stud farm where they raise the horses.
Yeah.
And they had, I don't know if they still do, but back when they started, they had a policy where if a horse was born on a bad day, as far as their astrology was concerned, it was immediately sold. Didn't matter who the parents were or whether it was could be a good racer. It was just gone.
And what do you make of that?
I thought it was stupid, but,
Well, let's ask Andrea what she thinks. What do you think, Andrea?
Here's what I think. I think that we don't question how many, people will call here today or like Jim will say, why do you believe in, how can you believe in, we don't question why people play the lottery despite the announced overwhelming odds that they won't win. Mm-hmm. We don't question why people, when they play the lottery, use dates and numbers that are special to them pretty consistently. Yeah. They include birth dates. We don't question when people curtail their behavior because Mercury's in retrograde or they rush to get certain things done. Yeah. But that happens every single day. There's an element of this that flows through our daily lives in some way, shape, or form. Like I said, I'm not an astrologist. I wouldn't mind having my chart read based on the date and time, that I was born. But I think that there is something to the stars. The moon controls the tides. There's something to the alignment of planets and stars that affects our everyday life.
Jean, so what she's basically saying is she's going to sell all the horses. Jean, thank you very much for your Irish experience. Now, an anonymous texter, I assume this is disparaging, said, Jim, I knew you were a Taurus before you said you were.
Well,
so there you are.
Well,
What are the good qualities?
As a
what are the good
compliment.
qualities in a Taurus? Any? No. Okay, eight's at none.
The good
right?
qualities are if you can't say something nice about a Taurus, don't say anything at all.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good. Oh, look at Andrea. Andrea's the happiest she's been in weeks. This is like, what is her problem? Let's. We're talking about astrology. Here's a good one. Anonymous. Astrology is the ultimate example of abdicating responsibility for one's own life. It allows one to point to something outside of their control to explain everything good or bad that happens to them.
Like
what do you say to
religion.
that? Yeah.
That would be like religion where you say everything that's
I'm
bad.
an agnostic.
is
So
that- no, I'm not talking about you.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying that's an oversimplification. I mean, with all due respect to the texter, I don't think there are people saying that everything that happens in my life happens because of the alignment of the stars. People do say that who adhere to certain religions.
They do.
Yes.
Where do you want to go?
Well, we're getting some Rhode Island callers. I have to believe that's because I'm on the show.
Maybe that
Lauren
is.
from Warwick. Hi, Lauren.
She's a Rhode Island kid, for those who don't know. Go ahead.
Hi there. Thank you for having me on. Long-time listener, first time on the air.
We're very happy to have you. Welcome.
Thank you. So astrology is something that I've, had a little bit of a focus on lately in my life, and I can't help but see synchronicity, which is another topic that is full of wonder, at the very least. That said, numerology tends to be a little bit more accurate than Western astrology. However, getting into Western astrology can also bring you into myths and the stories that came before us. So at the very least, if you're just going to look at, whatever sign you are, going back and looking into the history of that sign and how it relates to Greek gods and goddesses is an interesting dive. Third of all, or second, the Capitol building has astrological signs built into it.
Is that true?
They are copying the Greek gods and goddesses and took some of those things into the building of our buildings. And then when you look at these big, powerful, mega companies, like Whole Foods, for instance. I opened a Whole Foods inside of their Cranston location. I was working there for 10 years. They built crystals into the supports that are holding up the ceiling in order to cleanse it of bad energy.
Oh my God! How do you know such about?
Because he's
Lauren,
from Rhode Island.
Why do you know so much about this?
Honestly, being from Rhode Island, I'm aware of the separation between church and state.
And good for you, Lauren.
Having that little nugget really helps fill in the scope of what we have here.
Lauren, that was impressive. That was really an impressive
I agree, Lauren.
call. Thank you, Lauren, for the call. Anonymous texter says Tauruses are also known to be awful bakers.
That's true. But you know something? I'm so glad that he called. I just remembered that when I was a child, I read obsessively about Greek mythology, Roman mythology, and Norse mythology. I still can name every Greek god, every Roman god, and most of the Norse gods still to today, right? And that's when I first realized that I was a Sagittarius, because I realized it was the Archer. I realized there was a constellation. That's how I actually became familiar with all of this. It wasn't until Lauren just mentioned that I realized what the connection was.
So you were reading that, and I was stealing Playboys from the local drugstore.
I absolutely believe that's
always
true.
do that. By the way, a friend of mine said most librarians are Virgos. Now, does that make sense to you?
I think
What
Virgos,
is a Virgo?
I think Virgos are pretty organized, right?
They are?
I think they are.
How do I know?
Well, so who wrote in to tell us that Tauruses and Sagittarians, they can work together very compatibly if they embrace their differences? I can't see this on the screen. Can you move this up, guys?
Yeah, we'll get there in a second. Virgos...
Up.
Not yet.
Virgos like structure.
That's part of the librarian kind of thing. Okay, you want to read whatever you're talking
Taurus brings stability, detail, and practicality. Sagittarians offer vision, adventure, and big ideas, requiring them to balance security, which is Taurus, with freedom, which is Sagittarius, through strong communication. We do get along.
It's ridiculous. No, I know we get along. That's
time.
I know, but it's not because of it. I mean, it's because of
it's not because of it. It's just that's kind of who we are. I'm not saying it's
so. What would I have to be to not get along with you? Which sign would I be? And you'd say, obviously, there's going to be a lot of tension in the room. What's that going to be? I mean, what's that going to be? Like an independent? Is that an astrological sign? An independent? What is that?
No, I don't know. Oh, you mean what sign would you have to be?
What sign would I have to be? Where you'd say, uh-oh.
If you were another fire sign, it could be a problem.
Okay, like a Leo, whatever.
Oh,
that
yeah,
is.
Leo or an Aries.
No. That would be really exactly. That's what I think of whenever. Let's go to Alita in New York. Hi, Alita.
Hi,
How
Alita.
are you?
Hello.
Hello.
First of all, I'm originally from Rhode Island. I love that guy's comment.
He was excellent.
You're all going by only the sun sign.
Sure.
The sun sign determines the personality.
Yeah.
You're saying, Sag. I'm a Sag, by the way. Today's my birthday.
Good for you.
Happy
birthday.
Oh my God. Yeah, go ahead.
But the sun sign is just the personality.
Yeah.
You're not talking about the rising sign.
Nope.
Where the moon is. My moon's in Capricorn and my rising sign is Scorpio.
I'm glad to hear
You have to do that.
What is what is that word? The live sign? What is that word?
Is that my accent?
No, spell it. What is it?
What? What did I just say?
What is the word you said?
You talked about your rising.
Oh.
Your rising is
the rising sign.
Rising, I'm sorry. That was my fault. Yeah.
Is determined by what time you were born, where you were born. You're just generalizing. Well, he's a Taurus, and this is what he is. You're a Sag. That's what you are. No,
sure.
I have five fire signs in me. Yeah. Jim could have Taurus and have other things in him.
I do have other things.
Oh, he definitely has other things in him.
Yeah, he's not. You're generalizing with Jim that he's a Taurus.
Okay.
I know.
No, that was actually very helpful.
No, it is helpful.
No, it was. Alita, thank you. That was an excellent call. And now there we are. So Mitch says, I don't know about astrology, but I work with the public and can totally tell when it's a full moon.
Well,
so
another texter pointed out that the moon, because it affects the tides, our bodies are like, 84%, 94%, some huge percentage of water.
Yeah.
So it makes some sense that the moon might affect us as well.
Yeah.
At least in the movies, it certainly makes a difference between whether or not you turn into a werewolf.
Oh, that's the only proof I've heard so far that's convincing in this. That sound, I mean, I really gives me like...
Well, there's just chimes. Who's doing that?
It's not just chimes. It's astrological tunes is what they are. Let's go to Tony in Worcester. Astrology is huge in Worcester, by the way.
Hi,
Tony, what's your
Tony.
deal?
Hi.
Where are you on this?
Hi. I think, so about astrology, I think it's just largely self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe it, it's true.
Well, that was succinct.
Well, there you go. Tony, thanks. Didn't waste any time. Got to the point.
Got right to the point.
Got to go wash
so
the
what
car
sign is Tony? He's succinct. He's to the point.
What would that be?
I have no idea.
I would know. What are you, Tony? You still there?
Aries.
The fire sign.
Now, you know what the problem is? When you say Aries, people who believe in astrology, like Andrew, go, oh, of course.
I mean,
no matter what he said, you would have said, oh, of course.
I just said he's a fire sign.
Okay,
that's
fine.
all I know about it.
Okay, Tony, thank you for your call. That was excellent, too. 877-301-8970 is the phone number.
But here's the thing.
What is it?
What's the harm in believing?
There's no harm. There's no harm.
So why be disdainful of it?
What?
Why be disdainful? Why must you criticize Jim? This is one of the things I've been
I can answer. That I can answer.
Because you're a Taurus.
Because I'm a Taurus.
That's right.
I can't stop it. I mean, there are times I was about to not be critical of your position, and then I said to myself, but wait a second, I am a Taurus.
And you can't help
help myself.
That's
exactly.
very true.
So that's the answer to your question. 877-301-8970. I have we're talking about it because of the Washington. What did the Washington Post story say that started this conversation? I have no idea either.
Me either. I've completely lost the thread. But
we
Peter is here from Somerville.
Yeah, Peter, you are. Hi, what's the deal with you, Peter?
Hi, I'm really enjoying this section of the program.
You are?
Because there's such a wide range of opinions.
There is?
There's not as wide a range of opinions about politics.
That's a good point.
But anyway,
okay, go ahead.
I was habitually kind of skeptic about astrology and so on. I was visiting a friend. He had an astrology calendar.
Ooh.
I read about Leos, and they're supposed to get along with Aquarians. I'm an Aquarian. And I realized that half of my friends were Leos. So I thought, I should have a little more of an open mind about this than I did. So, I'm not, I don't believe in astrology. It's very interesting. And once upon a time in Amherst back in the 70s, a housemate interview required me to reveal my astrological sign, and I failed the roommate interview.
Well, that's very frightening. Now, what do you make of the fact that half of your friends, or more, whatever you said, are Leos? What do you make of that? Are you seeking them out? Are they seeking you out? What's the deal?
No. Well, Jim, what I realized was that I was closed-minded.
Oh.
And I read something that said that pointed this out about Leos and Aquarians supposed to get along well. And I put that together and thought, I have this experience, this source. Maybe I should look into this rather than being so close-minded.
Well, that's really good because he looked at it and expanded his horizons. That is very mature.
Peter, that was excellent too. Another excellent, well thought out phone call on the subject of astrology. Thank you, Peter.
I don't even know why I talked to you.
So let me ask you, because I only half remember this. So I was right. Nancy, we'll get to your calls. Nancy Reagan would have astrologers in the White House, but she wanted them to tell her what to do. Is that not true? I mean, she lived her life according to astrology. Is there not truth to that, or what?
I think she wanted them to sort of forecast or foretell, where her career was going, her and Ronnie's career was going, or what was coming up in their lives. I don't know how driven she was by it on a daily basis.
So an anonymous texter, this is another very thoughtful, only a Taurus would dig in as deeply on liverwurst as Jim does. My experience has been every Taurus I've ever known squeezes liverwurst out of the tube directly into their mouth. Have you noticed that with Tauruses? Tauri? No, really, I'm telling you right now. Damien in Providence, I'm becoming a believer. You have a minute.
Providence, Providence.
There it is. Damien, what's up? Go ahead, say something.
Jim.
Hi there.
It's a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Pleasure to talk to you too.
Definitely a very interesting subject and topic. Being somebody who is kind of out there, I appreciate the fact that there are so many people that you can actually see their personality type correlate with their astrological sign. Not sure if it's, just the mojo of the universe or if it has to do with gravitational pull and planetary alignment.
Mm-hmm.
But there is something to be said about it. I mean, it's been something practiced and looked at for centuries. And, I mean, man's search for meaning has come from the stars for quite some time. So
Do you live your life according to astrological stuff, Damien, or what?
I wouldn't say I live my life to it, but, I kind of pay attention to the signs.
Yeah, this is another thoughtful.
Good for you, Damien.
And he sounds like a total grown-up, too.
He does. We are all
like
total grown-ups. It's just that we disagree with you.
Damien,
that doesn't make us immature.
Thank you. Now, I would guess, let me just look at Jared. I would say I'd say he's a fire sign. I don't know what they are, but you're a fire sign, correct?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't follow.
Wait, you don't even know what you are?
No.
That's
really.
not true.
Well, I know what I am, but I don't
What
know.
are you?
I don't know what.
What are you?
It's. You want to know my sign?
Yes.
No shirt, no shoes, no service.
What is it?
No, I'm not telling you.
What do you mean?
Because I don't.
He doesn't tell things.
No, well then you're not leaving, and you're not talking about your show until you tell us what your sign is. What's your
talk.
sign?
You can't
What's
hold
your
my
sign?
tongue.
What's your sign?
What's your sign?
I'm a Taurus.
He's a
I'm proud
Can't
of
you
it.
tell?
I don't know what that
means. Is that a fire sign?
No,
Sure,
they're like
why not?
stubborn and bullheaded people.
What are you?
The men are. I don't think the women are. I think it's the men.
What are you, Jared? Really, you're not leaving here without telling us.
Were you going to block the door?
Maybe I will.
All I know
What
is that he and I get along famously.
Who?
Jared and I. So whatever he is, we are compatible.
Let me just say, the fact that Jared won't. Okay, I found out what your birthday is. You two talk, and I'm going to look up what you are. Okay, you talk to him.
Okay. So listen.
Wait, you can look at my birthday?
Yeah, I know what your birthday
How do
is.
you know what his birthday is?
I just happen to know what his birthday is. Go ahead, just keep talking.
See, and he has no friends. That's not Taurus. That's just Jim.
Do you want to know what's coming up on the show today?
Yes, I would love to know what's coming up on the show.
You remember the book turned movie Wonder?
He's a Gemini.
yeah.
Excuse me. He's a Gemini. Would you say right away he's a Gemini?
I can see it. I mean, based on the personality traits
He's
that
turning
little I
red
know,
like a beet. What is going on here?
he has an equanimity that you could only hope to have. He does. Geminis have a great deal of equanimity. Geminis can be very zen when they need to.
Yeah, but what does it say to you that he wasn't willing to tell us? There's something going on there.
He wasn't
that is
willing
really
to tell you. I didn't
iffy.
ask him.
Okay. What's going on the show, Mr. Gemini?
So the book turned film Wonder is now a musical at the ART. So we'll talk about that. We will talk about the new Higgins Armory Museum. Remember, they had that major arms and armor collection in Worcester. They shuttered. Everything went to the Worcester Art Museum. The new galleries have just opened at the Worcester Art Museum, so we'll talk to their director about that. And then we're going to talk about, speaking of Worcester, a new video game that has been produced by students at Clark University. Became their project. Now it's this huge indie hit. Unsent is the name of the game.
Okay, Ooh. Gemini is an air element, whatever that means. People born on whatever your birthday is, are considered part of the first decan of Gemini, often described as bright, logical observers who seek knowledge and experience many facets of life. So obviously further proof that astrology doesn't work. And we'll be listening to your show, Jared.
All right, good to see you.
Why do you think he didn't want to tell me what his sign was? There's something going on.
The same reason a lot of people don't want to tell you a lot of things.
There's something serious going on there. Okay, you got to say goodbye.
All right. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for listening to another edition of BPR.
Really?
Keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast, or check us out on our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. If you tune in tomorrow, Jim and Marjorie are back at the BPL with CNN's John King on Zoom. Carol Rose of the ACLU of Massachusetts and author Jeff Pearlman is going to zoom in on his new book about Tupac Shakur. We also have State Rep David Meridian and David Nangle of Stop Internet Gambling, discussing proposed changes to the state's gambling laws. Our wonderful crew is Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, and Hannah Loss. Maddie Geyer ran our YouTube stream today. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker, and our executive producer and excellent cake baker is Jamie Bologna. Stay tuned to The Culture Show with Jared Bowen. Starts immediately after us on 89.7 GBH. I'm Andrea Cabral.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thanks
You're
for
great,
listening.
Andrea.
Thank you very much.
See you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware, committed to helping you achieve your vision for a new kitchen or bathroom and guiding you from design to completion with showrooms in York and Portland, Maine. AtlanticDesignCTR.com. Ken Burns calls it America's best idea, and you may have already experienced it. Now learn the fascinating behind-the-scenes story surrounding his most beloved documentary series. Tune in for The National Parks, tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up today on The Culture Show, Wonder was introduced to the world as a best-selling novel, became a hit film, and now it's finding new life as a musical, making its premiere at the American Repertory Theater. Award-winning playwright Sarah Rule joins us to talk about writing the show's book and translating a beloved story about kindness, difference, and courage for the stage. Then we explore the art and artistry of war. Once a staple of New England museum visits, the Higgins Armory Museum was shuttered 12 years ago. Now its world-class collection of arms and armor from across Europe, Asia, and Africa is finally once again on view. The Worcester Art Museum has just opened dazzling new galleries. We'll look at how these objects shaped centuries of conflict and creativity. And we go inside Unsent, a new indie video game set in a 1970s-inspired post office, where lost letters and feelings pile up. We'll talk with creative director Brian Rondeau about conjuring this surreal bureaucracy. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. In the novel Wonder, we meet Augie Pullman, a boy born with a facial difference that makes strangers stare and whisper. For years, he's taken refuge behind the visor of an astronaut helmet, a small shield fending off a world that often cruelly considers him. But when he enters middle school, his mother urges him to remove the helmet, to show his face and himself to the world. What follows is a story about courage and compassion. Now, Wonder has been adapted into a musical having its world premiere at the American Repertory Theater. The playwright shaping that story for the stage in writing the book is Sarah Ruhl, a MacArthur Genius Grant recipient and two-time Pulitzer Prize finalist, whose work often lingers on transformation, on how ordinary lives brush against the poetic or divine. Her fascination with change isn't just thematic, it's personal. More than a decade ago, she developed Bell's palsy, a condition that left one side of her face partially paralyzed. In her memoir Smile, The Story of a Face, she writes about how the condition affected her life, her identity, and her ability to express herself. Wonder is on stage beginning Wednesday and running through February 8th. Sarah Ruhl, welcome back to The Culture Show. It's great to see you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted.
Well, this is a story that many people are already familiar with because of the children's book and then the film adaptation. How did you find your way to it?
It came to me through the wonderful producer Jill Furman, who said, would you take a look at this book? We're making it into a musical. And I said, well, in fact, I've already sobbed through the book, and I've already sobbed through the movie. You know, one of those times where when you're on an airplane and the stewardess says, you know, are you okay? And you're like, I'm just watching Wonder. I'll be fine. But having a good cry. So I'd already read it and loved it, and so I was delighted when it was brought to me. And then I got to meet the band Great Big World, who I instantly fell in love with.
Well, how do you I just described this character in the broadest sense, but as you really took a close look at him and what he's going through and what he's surrounded by, how do you describe who he is, this remarkable little boy?
Well, there's one song called Ordinary in the show, and it's about how Augie's both ordinary and not ordinary. You know, he's got a great sense of humor. He loves space. He loves his dog, and he has a happy family. And he's had probably 28 facial surgeries, and so he's been through hell and learned to cope with it. So one thing that's been extraordinary is having this boy Garrett play Augie, and Garrett's been through a lot of similar things. He has Treacher-Collins syndrome, and he's just astonishing in the role.
As you looked at this and considered your own story and what has happened to you, how did you look at that, or I'm avoiding using the word use it, but maybe it's a word that would apply here too, but you obviously had more insight than many people into this.
Well, I think what happened to me with Bell's palsy definitely drew me to the material, and I feel like what Augie's been through is much more extreme than what I went through. But also I did have insight into what it feels like when the expression on your face doesn't match how you feel inside. I'd had experience with people taking pictures of me while I was making facial expressions because they thought it looked strange. I'd had experience with, you know, just the heartbreak of the medical system when something you have chronically sort of falls out of an area of expertise. So I could definitely relate with Augie's feelings of isolation and for me personally, feelings of despair when my face was not matching my inner world.
If you could explain a little bit more of that, because people might not understand the disparity about what you feel on the inside, what people are seeing on the outside, and how that does transfer, as you've written about in your memoir.
Yeah. So for most people, Bell's palsy, which is the paralysis of the seventh cranial nerve, goes away in like 3 months. Like it's just a kind of strange viral idiopathic condition that comes and goes. But then for some people, it just lasts and lasts. And I was one of those people, and my paralysis was pretty severe on my left side. And so I couldn't smile and I couldn't mirror people's facial expressions. And I could smile on the other side of my face, but when it was at its most severe, that looked sort of more like a grimace than a smile. You couldn't necessarily read it as a smile. I think at this point, I've gotten enough capacity back that people can read my expression as a smile. It turned out, weirdly, that I had chronic Lyme disease. That was the reason the Bell's palsy wasn't going away for 10 years. And it took writing a book about it for a doctor to call and say, I think you actually have neurological Lyme disease. So that was incredible. And I have, I have a lot more function on my left side than I used to, but my face will never be what it was before I had the condition. So just coming to terms with how you look in photos, how you might present to people, how you might deal with like a sensitive work situation where you want to seem friendly or you want to seem pleasing, but you think what you're giving off is a kind of severity of expression. All of those things are things I've thought about a lot over the past decade.
And you had this extraordinary dichotomy, and this was happening to you personally, but at the same time, your career was continuing to flourish, and you're having shows open. And what was that experience like to have these parallel lives, your professional self and what you were going through?
It was bizarre. I mean, I also had, 3 little kids at home. I got the Bell's palsy right after giving birth to twins. So there was a sense of abundance, both professionally and personally. But in terms of my body, there was not a sense of abundance or energy. There was a feeling of stasis, paralysis, and sadness. So I think writing the book Smile helped me make sense of that, helped me kind of create words around the experience, because I think, as you said, it was pretty bifurcated.
Well, what did you find in as you're writing the book, where we're catching you in the midst of rehearsal now? As I mentioned, this is a world premiere, so it's coming together as we speak. But in writing this story, at this point, more than 10 years into what's happened versus when you were processing it earlier on?
I'm glad that I have more distance from it and more insight, because ultimately it's about Augie, it's about this cast, and I should mention there are 2 little boys playing Augie, one on 2 matinee days, just to give one actor a break. And I really want to be there for them in terms of telling the story. We've had wonderful disability trainings and workshops, and really a feeling of kindness in the room. That RJ Palacio sort of started a movement called Choose Kind as a result of Wonder, and I feel like our rehearsal rooms have that feeling of kindness, which is so great. We also were working with a nurse from NYU named Pam, and she said, for those nurses in the craniofacial unit at NYU, there was a before Wonder and an after Wonder. In other words, there was this profound effect where all these kids were reading the book, and it made it much more possible for kids with profound craniofacial differences to go to school, and they'd be much less likely to be bullied. So it's just been really healing and meaningful to be part of that.
I'm speaking with playwright Sarah Ruhl. She is writing the book for Wonder, the world premiere musical at the American Repertory Theater. Well, of course, you know theater so well. What is it to bring this story to the stage and give it even more life? And following on the heels of what you just said, and people understanding this, and how there can be a before and after in terms of people understanding these stories on a much deeper level.
Well, I think what's different about the stage is you really get to walk in other people's shoes in a really literal way. I mean, of course, there was a movie, but with the stage, so many more people get to kind of walk through the roles. And there's a song called Shoes in the show, which I think is a beautiful song, where Jack, Augie's best friend, is trying to walk in Augie's shoes. And the centrality of the body in the theater world, as opposed to reading, just brings a whole nother dimension, I think, to the story. And literally in 2 hours, hopefully the audience changes their perception.
What's also lovely about this story is his parents.
Yeah.
This isn't trauma porn in that regard, because he has really, really lovely parents.
Yeah, he has a lovely family and sister. And one thing I love about the book is that there are all these portals, entry points of empathy and point of view. So there are different chapters, and you go into his sister's point of view, his sister's best friend's point of view. And it's interesting because I've noticed that technique more and more in fiction over the last 10 years. But I actually think Wonder was one of the early experiments with it, at least in YA fiction, where you really... you'll get these fan favorites, like the character Summer. You get to see into her optic, but for sure the parents. And I think families who've negotiated disability, I've heard from, in terms of moms and dads who've been bringing their kids in, that even the experience of siblings is not often talked about. The whole family system, how it responds when you have a kid with 26 surgeries, what that does to the whole family system is not often talked about. And I think Wonder is an amazing window into that.
In this case, as we mentioned, of course, there's the book and the film. From which do you draw your inspiration, or is it both?
It's both, but maybe because I'm a writer first and foremost, I go back to the written word. So I really look to RJ's text as a guide. She's a wonderful guide, and it was an honor to meet her through the process of writing it.
So when you were last here with me in the studio, it was about the Matt O'Coin's opera around Eurydice, and you mentioned, I didn't forget this, you mentioned that you were gravitating toward more music, and I don't think I knew at that point, maybe you didn't know at that point, that Wonder was in the offing. So this is definitely a trajectory for you.
Yeah, it's been an interesting chunk of time where music seems to be filling my life up. And I've always been interested in poetry and where the word kind of lifts off and becomes music. And I've always loved musicians. So it's been a wonderfully creative time, and working with kind of beginner's mind, doing musicals and operas for the first time.
How do you use, or do you use the music, if it's even created at the point at which, and actually I would love for you to shed light on that too, this creative process, what happens when, but how do you use the music in your writing?
Well, I think on a musical, it's this great back and forth, at least with Great Big World, where we'll talk about the moment before the song, what the song is doing. Could there be lyrical adjustments within the song to make it land even more? And I find all those conversations deeply satisfying. And I love to just be, the nerd in the corner while they're orchestrating or arranging, and hearing them argue about whether something should be in the key of D flat or not. I like being a fly on the wall with all of that stuff.
Well, we've talked about your interest in poetry before, but are you a musician yourself? To what extent did you grow up with music?
I played the piano when I was little, from the time I was 5 to about 18. And, I think I was a pretty indifferent piano player, but my teacher, Barbara Rubenstein, gave me the language to think about music, to read music, to talk about music. And I wrote a book this year called Lessons from My Teachers, Preschool to the Present, and I talk about all the teachers in my life I've been lucky enough to have, and Mrs. Rubenstein was one of them. And I was just reflecting about, what is the impact of a teacher on your life, even if you don't end up doing the thing? Like, it was clear I'd never be a concert pianist. I was really not very good. But how could either of us ever have known then that one day I would be reading a score or trying to talk to musicians about an orchestration? And I wouldn't have, I don't have an opinion ever about an orchestration in a granular way. I totally trust the musicians, but to be able to say, this moment feels a little slow. just even that, having some musical training is very helpful for that.
Are you in the camp of everything happens for a reason?
I am. I do think there's a ton of synchronicity.
You also had Paula Vogel as a teacher, one of my favorite people. I just read that in my research about you this time. I think I had missed that before. Apologies if we did talk about it, but I don't remember. But this great dramatist and playwright. And how do you encapsulate what you took away from her as your teacher?
Well, Paula is like family to me at this point, and hopefully she and her wife Anne will be at the Wonder opening. But like in this essay I wrote for the book Lessons from My Teachers, I talk about how Paula recently taught my oldest daughter Anna how to drive. And it's ironic because one of Paula's most famous plays, of course, is How I Learned to Drive. And she was pulling up to an intersection in Cape Cod, and Paula lives in Wellfleet with her wife Anne. And she was telling Anna, my daughter, make yourself visible at the intersection, pull up and make yourself visible so other cars don't hit you. And so then when I was driving with Anna had the voice of Paula in her mind and was saying, okay, I've got to pull up to the intersection, make myself visible. And I was like, oh my God, that is one of the biggest lessons Paula taught me as a writer, was to make myself visible on the page. And here it's coming through in this more quotidian way. But I mean, she's taught me so much. That's a conversation that's been going on for 20 years now or more.
Well, finally, I'll end where we began, and you talked about reading this book and just sobbing. What should audiences brace for, knowing that the level of emotion this particular story stirs up in people, and the way you'll be delivering it to us?
I think that there's a tenderness in this story. And I think in a funny way, what makes you weep is people's kindness to each other. There's some cruelty that August Pullman experiences, but there's also a tremendous amount of kindness he finds from teachers and friends and family. And, I was bullied as a kid. So many kids have been bullied, and I think kids are going to be able to relate to Augie's plight whether or not they have a facial difference, and parents will be able to relate to trying to protect their kid in school, whether or not they've dealt with disability. So I think it presses on audiences' empathy in more than one position, and then you even have our town, in a key moment in the movie and in the book. I won't spoil it, but I remember. I think that was the moment on the airplane that I just started weeping. Yeah. Thornton Wilder never fails.
Well, he was the last one to obliterate me at the theater with
Is that right?
The recent Broadway revival. Yeah, that was a tough one to get through.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I should say too, there's a lot of joy in and there's a great number about Halloween that is the joy of dressing up and the joy of being someone else. And one thing I love about One Big World, is their music is so playful and infectious and really captures to me, you know, the mind of a child without being childish, you know, just that they've retained their playfulness, and they're hard on the sleeve musicians. And I think this story is a kind of hard on the sleeve story.
Well, I cannot wait to see it. I'll be there opening night. I'm so looking forward to this. Thank you as always. And as always, so great to see you.
So great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Wonder has been adapted into a musical with a world premiere at the American Repertory Theater. The book is by award-winning playwright Sarah Ruhl. Wonder is on stage at the ART's Loeb Drama Center beginning Wednesday and running through February 8th. To learn more, go to AmericanRepertoryTheater.org. Again, Sarah Ruhl, thank you so much. Well, coming up, 10 years, thousands of objects, and one monumental reopening. The Worcester Art Museum has unveiled its new Arms and Armor galleries, once part of the Higgins Armory Museum collection. And we're suiting up for a closer look. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Arun Rolfe. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, a recount is underway in Brockton after last month's election. Some candidates say ballots have been mishandled. And scientists have identified millions of new species since the 1700s, and they're continuing to uncover more as research expands. A look at the effort to better understand life on Earth, and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Lyric Stage, presenting A Sherlock Carol. This fresh and charming reimagining of Sherlock Holmes and Ebenezer Scrooge is a Yuletide detective story that's as good as gold. Running November 14th through December 21st at Lyric Stage Boston. Tickets at lyricstage.com. And Cleary Insurance. For over 35 years, Cleary Insurance has been serving businesses and individuals in Greater Boston, offering advice and coverage from carriers like Arbella to help people lead safe and secure lives. More at clearyinsurance.com.
GBH 89.7 listeners prefer to purchase from companies that sponsor GBH. Become a corporate sponsor today. Packages can include audio, video, digital, and events. Learn more at gbh.org/sponsorship.
Find that Friday feeling early at GBH Music's Jazz Night, featuring pianist, composer, and poet David Leach, Thursday at 5:30 at the Boston Public Library. Get a free ticket at wgbh.org/events.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show, live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. A programming note, tune in tomorrow for rock and roll and literary legend Patti Smith, who joins me about her new memoir, Bread of Angels. But right now, for centuries, Arms and Armor have told a dual story of warfare and of artistry. Behind every sword, shield, and suit of armor is a record of technology, craftsmanship, and the cultures that shape them. And few collections capture that sweep more vividly, from medieval Europe to Japan, India, Africa, and beyond, than the Worcester Art Museums, formerly the holdings of the Higgins Armory Museum. For the past decade, though, much of that world has been out of view ever since the Higgins Armory closed and the Worcester Art Museum took over the collection. But now, after much thought, much conservation, and much design, WAM has opened a dazzling new series of galleries dedicated to arms and armor. The ambitious effort reconsiders how this global collection should be experienced. And last month's reopening marks the return of a major cultural treasure to public view, with some objects never even seen before publicly. To guide us through what these objects reveal and how the reimagined galleries bring their global histories to life, we're joined by Matthias Waschek, the museum's director, and Jeffrey Forgang, curator of Arms and Armor and Medieval Art. Welcome to both of you, and congratulations. This has been a long time coming.
Oh, yes. This has been a very long time coming, yes.
Well, Jeffrey, I'll start with you because I know that you moved beyond the Worcester Art Museum to being affiliated with this collection, of course, at the Higgins Armory. Describe for people who haven't had a chance to know about it or experience what this collection is.
The collection was put together by John Woodman Higgins beginning in the 1920s and up until the time of his death in the early 1960s. And he created this museum to be a museum of metalcraft. It opened in 1931, and so at the time, it was on the campus of his press steel factory, and the idea was that visitors could come and see the history of metalcraft across the centuries, and then also take a factory tour. The factory closed down in the 60s, and ultimately the Higgins remained as an independent museum, but shuttered in 2013.
And how do you describe the collection that he established? In looking back at my own research, I've long been familiar with it, but a lot of people say it's second only to the Met in this country.
It's certainly the second largest in the country, and it is it's really quite remarkable. There are very few significant arms and armor collections in this country. The Met, of course, has the biggest and the best. They're a remarkable world-level collection. And then other important collections would be us, Philadelphia, Chicago, and then after that it starts to drop off pretty precipitously. It's really extraordinary to have one of the most important arms and armor collections in this country in a city the size of Worcester. And these are tremendously desirable objects from a museum point of view. They're the kind of object I like to say that it ranks with mummies and dinosaurs in terms of its visitor appeal. It can bring people into the museum environment who might not otherwise think that museums were for them.
In terms of appeal and popularity, right now you're offering timed tickets because there is so much demand, which is really exciting. Matthias, we've spoken about this over the years. This was a major point of pride, a major point of endeavor for you to make sure that this collection remained in Worcester and could go on view. As these galleries are now open, and again, if people are streaming on our GBH News YouTube channel, they'll see these spectacular galleries. What's the story that's being told here?
The story in the galleries, you mean?
Exactly, with it, recontextualizing these pieces.
Well, the overarching story, which is very much in tune with the museum that we are, an encyclopedic museum, so a global width of breadth of collections. And it was actually Jeffrey who came to the conclusion that the presentation should also be a global one rather than a Western-centric one. Because normally the collectors, and I'm just repeating Jeffrey's words, so Jeffrey is very present in my my answer to your question. Most arms and armor collections are focused on late medieval and Renaissance and maybe Baroque arms and armor from Europe, and the rest is a little bit falls by the waysides. And we have this opportunity at the Worcester Art Museum to tell a global story of that. And we made some major acquisitions recently to support that. So there's a Mughal suit of armor from the early 1800s, is that correct? And we also have a fish standard, which is a very nasty fish with very, very pointed teeth, shark-like coming out, and that would have been held, and here again I'm quoting you, by somebody sitting on an elephant and holding up this nasty fish with fabric behind him flapping in the wind. And so that's also in the gallery. We will continue to make those acquisitions. And if you ask me what my absolute dream would be, and it's unrealizable, is to have an elephant armor. But unfortunately, this will not be for us because they're all now part of national heritage and with Maharajas in palatial collection somewhere in India.
Well, before we go back to the collection, let me just broaden this out. And how do you describe the effort that it's undertaken, that you've put forward in assembling this collection? And we're talking about 5,000 square feet of gallery space. It's been about, as I mentioned, more than a decade since the people were able to experience the Higgins Armory collection. I know some of it has been on view in the intervening years, but to keep your eye on the ball, as it were, and be able to present this?
So, well, firstly, it sounds a bit exaggerate, not to say 10 years. It takes you 10 years to get a gallery together. And you gave some of the reasons, like conservation and doing curatorial work. But there's another reason for that, which is money. You have to find the money, and then you have to find the space. And that took also quite some time. So we didn't build on as other museums would have had they received a collection of that magnitude. But we relocated our library that had been since the 1970s in a former gallery space and put the library into a different wing. But that again required work, required money.
There was a lot of construction. I did a hard hat tour with you at one point.
Yes.
You brought everything down to the studs, kind of.
Yes, so it's a combination of things that makes that made it necessary to wait for a little bit more even than 10 years. We were using this as a lever also to allow the Worcester Art Museum to grow again. So when I took over 14 years ago, the museum was still reeling from the Great Recession, and lots of capacities had atrophied. And to have a really inspiring goal like this Worcester Art Museum should have arms and armor, rallied everybody behind it, helped us to jumpstart our fundraising capacity, and so on and so forth.
Well, Jeffrey, let's dive into the collection. And what do these pieces of arms and armor represent? I mentioned the artistry at the outset, because when people see them up close, you realize this isn't practical utilitarian warfare and battle here. What are we seeing?
It's tremendously complex, and that's part, I think, of what makes these objects so appealing and interesting to me. I've spent a quarter of a century working with this collection, and I'm going to go to my grave regretting not being able to live for centuries longer, because there are just so many stories to unpack. So at one level, these are utilitarian objects. These are not in every case, but I would say the majority of the collection was text. But we're talking about a society in which you couldn't show up on the battlefield in the equivalent of jeans and a battered old jacket. You had to look the part. The people who could afford a suit of armor were by definition the 1%ers of their day, and they expect to look as sharp on the battlefield as they did in court, and therefore they were always looking for equipment that would proclaim their social status, their affiliations, their religious beliefs, their aspirations, their culture. They really wanted all of that to be embedded in the look that they had on the battlefield.
And when you say they, to what degree does that become universal as we look at myriad cultures, as we look at Europe and Africa and Asia?
Exactly. So that's one of the great things behind this gallery project, is that we decided early on that we wanted to go for a global story because it seemed very suitable for a 21st century installation, and it would be very different from what you could see at the Met in New York or in Chicago or in Philadelphia. And so we wanted to tell a global story, and it's at that level of personal identity and legend building and mythologization that these objects really start to come together. They, at the surface level, they look very different because they're being used in different styles of warfare and different kinds of material contexts. But that underlying level of communicating a message about who you are and how you want people to see you, the ways in which these people want to be connected to a legendary, a semi-mythic past, and they want that to be embedded in the outfit, the equipment that they're wearing. That is something that is common to the European knight, to the samurai in Japan. It goes all the way back to ancient Greek, to the ancient Greeks and the sorts of arms and armor that they imagined being worn by the heroes at the siege of Troy, which was essentially versions of the same arms and armor that they were wearing 700 years later. And what's really great about it is it takes us up to the present day as well. Because, a modern person comes in and they see these suits of armor and they don't necessarily understand how they work in a physical way, a material way, because they're not really part of our material culture anymore. But they're still very much part of our immaterial culture. We get these objects at a visceral level, the kind of that impact, the sense of heroism, of legend, of mythology, of invulnerability, of empowerment that these objects were meant to evoke in their own day are things that we still get at a visceral level without anybody having to tell you. And that's a great thing because it instantly pulls people into these objects, into the experience, allows them to make a personal connection with these museum objects from 500, 1,000, 1,500 years ago in ways that is very unusual with most museum objects.
We're talking about the Arms and Armor collection at the Worcester Art Museum. It just reopened last month after a decade of conservation and thought. I'm speaking with Matthias Waszek, director of the Worcester Art Museum, and Jeffrey Forgang, curator of Arms and Armor and Medieval Art at the Worcester Art Museum. Matthias, I'm wondering, I was really struck when Jeffrey started off this conversation by talking about dinosaurs and mummies, and yes, arms and armor. To you, what is the mythology also that he was just talking about that enchants us still? You're an art historian as well and curator, so you understand the allure of paintings. What is it about these objects, do you think, that entices people?
I think because they are shielding our body. They're basically, our body is the form, the original form around which they are wrapping, and our bodies haven't changed. I mean, people grew taller, but our bodies haven't changed. So you can actually project yourself when you see a suit of armor, project yourself into that suit of armor. And the other allure that will benefit our museum and the contextualization that we provide is that you can, by sprinkling arms and armor into the galleries of old masters or in other areas, people will project their bodies. When they see, for instance, you have in the early Renaissance, there are very ornate seam-like lines all over the armor. And when you compare this, and we have a portrait of a court lady wearing with very prominent seams this courtly outfit, and all of a sudden you're projecting yourself into this suit of armor, and then you can project yourself into a painted suit of textile armor, if you will. And there are many examples of that that allow you a very direct connection with a two-dimensional artwork or with a different sized artwork that has armor on it.
And then we can also affix biographies we already know. Jeffrey, what's the connection you have to Henry VIII in the exhibition right now?
So for example, we do have an example of a gun shield. This is a sort of a combination of a pistol and a small round shield that was made in the early 1500s, and a large number of these were commissioned by Henry VIII. Some of them were part of his bodyguard, ended up at the Tower of London. Centuries later, they were still to be found there. And a significant number were also excavated from the Mary Rose, Henry VIII's flagship, that went to the bottom of the sea in the 1530s, I think it was. Henry was, at the time, he was the richest man in Europe. He just dissolved the monasteries, taken over lots of wealth from the church, and he was a boy who loved his toys. And some fast-talking inventor, sells him on these combination gun shields. They must have been tremendously unpopular with actually serving troops. They're cumbersome. They're really not, they're not really very effective, but they would have looked great on Henry VIII's personal bodyguard, proclaiming him to be a modern Renaissance man on top of the latest technology.
Well, and we only have about 30 seconds, but there's a lot of excitement, too, about the man who would be king in Spain.
Yes, so we have a pair of gauntlets that belong to a suit of armor that belonged to Prince Philip of Spain, who ultimately would become King Philip II, who sent the Spanish Armada against England in 1588. We're very lucky to have top-level armor custom made for one of the most important people in Europe at the time here in our displays in Worcester.
Well, congratulations to both of you. I've been covering the arts long enough to know that there was such sadness when the Higgins Armory Museum closed and the future of the collection was so uncertain. So yes, it took a little bit of time, but this is the happiest of endings that people can visit it once again. We didn't even talk about this open storage, so you can see even more of the collection than you might normally see in gallery space. Thank you both, and again, congratulations.
Thank you so much for having us.
Matthias Waszak is director of the Worcester Art Museum, and Jeffrey Forgang is curator of Arms and Armor and Medieval Art. Their new Arms and Armor galleries opened last month. To learn more about them and other exhibitions on view at the Worcester Art Museum, go to worcesterart.org. Well, coming up, speaking of Worcester, how a Worcester-based video game studio is making waves in the gaming industry, one piece of mail at a time. That's letters in the mail, not mail, chain mail that you might find in the Arms and Armor. One piece of mail at a time. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
On Monday, Syrians mark 1 year since the fall of Bashar al-Assad, their country's former dictator who ruled for more than 2 decades. His ouster sparked hope for peace and liberty as Syria writes its next chapter. We revisit some Syrians we spoke to a year ago to see how their lives have changed since then. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And North Shore Music Theater, presenting the 36th anniversary production of their musical version of A Christmas Carol. On stage at Bill Haney's North Shore Music Theater, December 4th through 21st. nsmt.org. And Cambridge School of Culinary Arts in Porter Square, offering teen and adult recreational cooking and baking workshops, series, and cooking couples classes for culinary enthusiasts. CambridgeCulinary.com. And Revels. Audiences can experience the joy of the holiday season with Midwinter Revels, a Scandinavian story for Christmas, December 12th through 28th at Sanders Theater, Harvard University. Tickets at revels.org/midwinter.
I'm Callie Crossley. All too often, a lot of very important news flies under the radar. Learn about the small stories before they become big headlines on my podcast, Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. What does it mean to deliver a letter weighted with emotion, but which languished for years before landing in its recipient's hands? That's one of the questions at the heart of Unsent, a new indie video game by Massachusetts-based studios Slimeware and Red Rabbit Games. The game is set in the regulatory realm, a world where real-life anxieties manifest as bureaucratic departments. Players assume the identity of Valentine, a peppy postman with a heart-shaped head who takes a job in the unsentiment department, where all undelivered messages end up. As the player, you'll run, jump, and slide your way through levels with one goal in mind: delivering the undeliverable. Unsent is out now on PC, in early access on Steam. Joining us to talk about it is Brian Rondo, creative director of Red Rabbit Games. This all began when he was a very imaginative student at Worcester's Clark University. Brian Rondo, welcome to The Culture Show. Thanks for being here.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, this is so exciting. Here you are as a college student having this idea for a video game that has really taken off. How did it come to you?
Well, it started, I did a directed study with Professor Alm at Clark University. She's the head of the undergraduate department there. And I did a bunch of design documents for games, which is how a lot of games start. And as I was writing the one for Unsent, I sort of felt that I had tapped into something that I was really interested to explore. and the feeling of getting something that you feel like you've been deserving but never quite got. And that's how we explored it. It was with unsent letters in Unsent.
And so people may not think about video games in this realm. We spent a lot of time on this show talking about films and theater and stories told in museum exhibitions. But walk me through the opportunity you have for storytelling in the video game realm.
So games provide, I think, a very unique opportunity for storytelling because they use the mechanics of the game to reinforce the story. It's called ludonarrative in like game psychology. So the gameplay of the game itself can reinforce the themes of the game in a way that traditional media really just can't do. The feeling of fighting to deliver a letter in Unsent is very palpable. It's hard to get there. And the player feels that as they play the game and they struggle, that maybe they die a couple of times before they can get there. And I think it provides a much more impactful experience.
What has it meant to you to explore this notion of the undeliverable? And I guess I also wonder what it represents to you, being in a space where you eventually become aware that there is something, a letter, some emotion that has been expressed and is intended to be delivered to you, but for so long didn't make its way there.
I think that, well, one of the things that we've done in Unsent very purposefully is that we don't ever show the player the letters that are undelivered, and it's very purposeful. We want to make sure that the player can understand what it feels like, and when they go through the entire level and they have this idea in their head, like, okay, maybe this letter might mean this to him, or it could be from this character. We don't really necessarily know, and the player themselves kind of get the feeling that the character in the game is getting. And then at the end, generally it works out pretty well for the person that they deliver the letter to, but the player is sort of left with that unfinished feeling, the understanding of what that person felt before the letter was delivered to them.
Well, to continue in the story building, who is this character, Valentine?
So Valentine is a regulator, the species that live within the regulatory realm. He just got fired from his last job at the backbreaking bureau. They break the backs of mothers whose children have stepped on cracks. He just wasn't cut out for the job. But the player learns pretty soon that he has lost his brother at some point in the past, and he wants to do something good for the world. And the only job open for him was at the unsentiment department, but it seems like a pretty good gig, so he went with that. And now he's just trying to make it work, and his boss seems to hate him off the bat for no reason as far as he can tell.
A lot of universal themes here.
Yeah, definitely. And Valentine has to basically try to understand where his boss is coming from while also navigating this new job and doing what he thinks is right. And he's generally like on the side of humans, trying to get the letter to them because he thinks it'll help them.
So as you outlined at the outset, you had the support of faculty at Clark University. A team is assembled along with you. How long does it take to go from idea to fruition, a game that people are now playing?
A lot longer than I thought at first. Yeah, so the team kind of came together very naturally. We didn't spend too much time on that. The school really helped us, hooking us up with people that could help. And basically everybody along the way was like, that sounds awesome. Let me help where I can. A lot of them were students at first, and then it became more professional game people. But the development cycle went very slow at first. The first 6 months, we were all still learning everything. We were trying to lay out this giant vision for what the game would be. And then we were approached by Red Rabbit Games, Matt Rubin, and he offered us funding for the ability to work for full time for 6 months on the game. And so we kind of stripped back the team at that point. We worked really hard to make a development timeline that we knew we could actually hit and do the things that mattered to the game. And then we worked really, really hard for 6 months. And that's what you see now on Steam.
I'm speaking with Brian Rondo. He's the creative director of Red Rabbit Games. Our new Unsent is in early access on Steam. So how would you describe the level of success you've had as an indie gamer? And we know the millions and tens of millions, if not more, hundreds probably, of millions of dollars that are spent by corporations on video games for you to be able to come up alongside them.
I think it speaks to how wonderful games are as an art form, that the engines that we use to create them are open source primarily, or at least free to use. It allows people to create essentially products that rival, $20 million, $100 million games in their own homes, in their offices, whatever they want to do. And it people like it. There's an entire world of indie games out there. There's people that swear by indie games only. They really only play indie games, not AAA. And it's very unique. Like, indie film is great, and I love tons of indie film, but movie theaters don't really care. Steam cares. Like, Steam lets you put your stuff right up next to the biggest games in the world, and it really, really helps.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I think a lot of people wonder, what is the nature of indie film now? Is it even independent? Because a lot of what we see has been picked up by studios that have their independent arm. But this is true independence. And I should say that Steam, for people who don't know, is the online marketplace for selling video games, so people understand what kind of platform that is. How long do you think this can last if we look at what happened to independent film? And not to say that all independent film is dead, but it becomes harder to find it.
Right. I think it depends. Games right now, AAA games especially, I think are going down a very dark and dangerous path in their business sense. I don't really think that what AAA is doing is going to last for too long.
What is AAA?
AAA is games that are published by a large, established business. So, like, EA is one of the biggest AAA developers out there right now. They have traditionally they've sort of fired a lot of their workforce after every big game. They crunch their team really hard. They make them work unreasonable hours, and then they fire them. They only give 3-month contracts now, stuff like that. Really unethical business practices that I just don't think are going to last for too long. And I don't really think that they're making up for market share in the meantime. Indie games have done very well in the time that AAA games have been slowly coasting downward. And I think indie games are really poised to maybe even overtake AAA eventually, which would be awesome. Or they'll just become AAA games as well.
Well, how big is the gaming industry in terms of participation? Do you have a sense of its hold across the world?
One of the stats that I always hear get tossed around is that the game industry per dollar is bigger than the film industry and TV. So I think it's in terms of customers spending money on games, there's not really a problem there. The problem is just getting your game in front of the customers. And Steam is the biggest solution to that right now, but there's problems with Steam as well.
And what is it about that engagement? I want to go back to how you were describing your game, Unsent, and you're so mindful of what the player is going to experience and what they don't experience. For instance, I thought it was really interesting when you said they don't ever have a sense of the letter. They don't know the letter that they're delivering necessarily. What is it about that engagement that makes this industry thrive? Because there's a great intimacy there.
Yeah. I think people always want to experience something magical in their life. And whether, when you grow up reading books, you might read Percy Jackson or Harry Potter, and you imagine these wonderful scenarios happening to you, and they don't tend to happen like that in real life. But games provide this wonderful escape from reality that lets people do whatever they want, whether it's do magic or be a weird little postman in a a weird reality. But it's the interactivity that makes you feel like you are that character, whereas I think movies and TV, they provide a temporary escape where you get immersed in it, for sure, in the same way that games do, but it's just different to feel like you are the character rather than that you are watching the character.
Well, the movies and TV and theater, they're also a more passive experience because for the most part, you're just ingesting. You can certainly talk about it at dinner afterward and the walk home, but there's a community that develops. What's the community that you've seen rise out of all of the players of your game?
I would say there's 2 distinct communities. One, we have speedrunners, which is a thing that a lot of 3D platformers get. Different types of games also get them, but they are a community that's interested in getting through the game as fast as possible, trying to go from the very start of the game to the credits. And they share strategic methods of getting from one place to another and how to break the game in a way to get there. And they basically make the game their own thing. And they take what we've made and make it a new thing, which I think is really, really cool. And then there's the people that are fans of the story, of the characters, and they want to delve into it. And there's crossover between both. There's some people that do both. But yeah, both have been super, super gratifying to see. There's been fan art made of all the characters, which is awesome. People asking for more. It's very cool.
Is the fandom and the community mostly positive, would you say? I have to say, as somebody, and I don't say this proudly, I played games when I was a kid, and then I didn't have as much time, so I'm not as immersed in the world. But I find every time I hear a reference to gaming in the media, it's always some sort of negative association. Is that few and far between?
It's few and far between within our fandom, I would say. I think outside of it, we hear it everywhere. I'm sure if any of the developers have family, there's always going to be somebody a little older that might not really understand what we're doing.
I see what you did there. I'm not. I'll allow it.
I think people are slowly starting to come around to it. They understand that there are games out there that aren't just shooting aliens' heads off anymore. We've moved very far beyond those days, and the games where you just kill things aren't really like popular anymore. They don't really like speak to people in the same way. There's always going to be games like that, and they're fun. I play them too, but there's always a little something else there. There's a little more.
So now that you've had this experience, you've got the T-shirt. Literally, you're wearing the T-shirt right now. What's next for you?
So Red Rabbit Games is working on a new game called Real Tiny, REEL. It's a fishing pun. Where you play as a very small woodland creature in an Appalachian creek, and you are fishing for microfish. So little fish that have never really made it in games before will be the main creature that you capture in the game. And we're still really blocking out what it will be like, but it's very exciting to move on to a new game while also still working on Unsent in the background to finish it up.
Well, Ryan Rondeau, congratulations on all the success you've had. This is thrilling, and I love that we had our Worcester show today, from the Worcester Art Museum to you. More all Worcester art all the time. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Ryan Rondeau is the creative director of Red Rabbit Games. Their new game, Unsent, is in early access on Steam now. For more information, visit redrabbit.games. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. Tune in tomorrow for Patty Smith. She joins me to talk about her new memoir, Bread of Angels, an examination of the premature death of her husband, explosive family secrets, and more consideration of her connection to Robert Mapplethorpe. The Culture Show crew is Max Chow-Gillette, Kate Dellis, and Chelsea Mers. Our engineer today is Bill Piacitelli. Our intern is Avery Morin. In today's Golden Globe nominations, actor Ethan Hawke was singled out for his film Blue Moon. Hear him talk about the film on the Culture Show podcast, that's wherever you get your podcasts. Also, a shout out today to Maddie Geyer for running our YouTube feed. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
GBH's All Things Considered is coming up this afternoon at 4, with Marketplace at 6:30. But first, get a global view of the news with The World. Up next, here on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the trustees, presenting Winterlights, a celebration of seasonal sparkle with light displays in Stockbridge and Canton, Massachusetts, running Wednesday through Sunday nights through early January. Advance tickets required. More at thetrustees.org/winterlights. Amid Trump's immigration crackdown, Frontline tells the story of one Venezuelan family in Florida trying to stay together and keep their legal status. Watch Status, Venezuelan, tomorrow at 10 on GBH2.
GBH is your home for fact-based news, smart conversations, and stories that matter to you. NPR and GBH News play an essential role in connecting our community and strengthening our democracy. We pursue the truth independently with deeply researched journalism. Listener support plays a huge role in making this station possible and keeping it available for everyone. Do your part to strengthen this home for trusted news. Pitch in online at gbhnews.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at